Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome back, everyone, to the VCS English. Our second series of the day, Cerberus taking on GAM. And a little bit like Cerberus and GAM are undefeated this split, I hear Rebel Fox is undefeated just in general. He's an awesome guy.
That's true. That's true. And I woke up this morning and they said, "Hey, you're gonna get to Casio, Cerberus versus GAM." And I was like, "All right, that's pretty nice." And then they said, "You're casting with Milky," and I'm like, "All right, now I have a reason to wake up this morning." So here I am, man.
I was wondering which direction that was going to go in, but I've got nice Rebel today. Tame Rebel.
I've taken a positive twist this year, my boy.
I love it. I love the plushie in the background as well. What is that?
It's a fox, although I was convinced it was an owl for a very long time. So yeah, that was the problem. So, but it is a fox.
Right, Rebel Fox in person, Rebel Fox in plushie. Let's though talk about Cerberus against GAM. Two teams that are undefeated. Cerberus 2-0 currently in the split. GAM 3-0. What are your takeaways so far of the performances of both teams?
So originally, I thought that GAM was not on it this split when they kind of had a rough game against Team Flash, and then I thought the same about Cerberus. I was like, okay, maybe they're a little shaky because they lost against Team Flash. And then Flash just delivered that pretty solid victory against Team Secret. And now I'm like, maybe Flash just isn't that bad of a team. And GAN and Cerberus are still at the top of our standings. So these are two teams that I think clearly have some of the best grounding as opposed to any other team in the entire league, right? You're still built in the bones of like Levi and Kiaya and Kadi and Style, even if you're subbing out B, who is a player that had a massive influence over their success in the previous split. And Cerberus is running back their roster for like the 19th split in a row. So at some point, we're hoping that they're going to be able to turn online. But I think Artemis has been having a great split already. So that always bodes well for Cerberus's chances.
I think it was two of the kind of talking points coming into this split. One being the fact that, okay, GAM have lost B. Yes, they've got Zin, a player who formerly played with GAM back in the ADC role, so he knows a few of the players. He knows how GAM likes to operate. And then you've got Cerberus, who, as you've said, for the umpteenth time are fielding this exact same starting lineup. The only difference to 4 or 5 splits ago is the fact that it is Drakthar in the jungle over Ego. But this is a split where we're seeing ADCs really rising up in the meta. ADCs becoming a lot more important. And we know how good Artemis can be. We do have picks and bans. We're going to head into that. But is there anything spicy you'd like to see Artemis play? Because we know how versatile he is as a player.
If we see a Twitch, it's not Twitch support. As much as I would like to say that, like, okay, it could be Twitch, it's not Twitch support. Come on, especially if it's Ron OP playing. Like, Ron OP's not going to play Twitch support. We could barely get Ron OP off of Nautilus support, let alone onto something like Twitch or something crazy like that. So Twitch would be a cool little addition to things. I know Ezreal also popped up there for a second. That that Essence Reaver Navori kind of build is really, really disgusting on a handful of champions. So Ezreal is always something that I keep in the back of my mind. I have loved Pun's Jax. Pun's Jax, we recall saying that Pun was like a Jax main before stepping into the split. I think that Pun's Jax has been a massive kind of addition to this team because not only is it this like frontline-y kind of lane stalling champion that Pun is already accustomed to playing consistently, but it's also just this insane side laner that they can use to leverage in the later game for like a split push and also a massive team fighter. Like there's nothing weak about this champion if Pun is allowed to just sandbag on it at the beginning.
Speaking of sand, we've got a Azir locked in for Yado in the mid lane. The Wukong eventually picked up by Pun instead of Jackson. We talked about getting Ron OP off that Nautilus, who was the very first ban by the side of GAM. And now Levi looking towards this Lee Sin. I know we'd all love to see an Elise, but not just yet.
Man, is there just no nuance to this draft coming out here from the side of GAM? If they go for, they just lock Jace. There's no nuance here. I was like, okay, will they flex Gragas into the jungle? Nope. They just give that up immediately. They're like, oh yeah, Gragas talk. It's going to be Jace in the mid lane. It's going to be Lee Sin in the jungle. Yeah.
Could it not be Kiaya's Jace and then AP Gragas mid? Because I know we've been seeing a lot of Gragas mid in some other regions.
It can be. I don't think that's a ridiculous notion either, depending on the lane setup. In this particular case, actually, I think you might be right in that, like, while I don't love Gragas into Azir necessarily, I do love the Jace into the Sion because it's a relatively free laning phase. Because if you're playing into a tank like this, it's really hard to kind of operate on that like win condition for the Sion. It's not here that I've seen it succeed more than anything else, but I have seen the Jace into the Sion be a really good matchup because it frees up Jace's weakest part of the laning phase. it just literally gets them onto like 2 items for free, basically without anything, unless you're just ganking that lane, but then you're ganking your tank, and it's like, okay, am I really caring about putting gold into my Scion? Not really. So I think that would be a solid play here, potentially. I don't suspect it, but I do think it's very possible, and I almost would prefer it in a game like this.
Well, the final couple of bans coming through. GAM now banning away the Xayah from Artemis. So trying to take away one of those ADCs that has a lot of self-peel. And to be honest, that makes a lot of sense when you've got champions like this Lee Sin, this Jason, this Gragas that wants to really be able to find a way to get on it to that backline effect.
Is it an Alistar angle? The Nautilus is gone, Milky. Is it an Alistar angle? We know this is the Vietnamese Alistar angle. Oh, or Leona. Leona's the other one, obviously. So you can see Nautilus got taken away, and then they're like, okay, Annie's gone. That's another big support. And then they're like, okay, Ashe and Heimerdinger, all these abuse case supports are like off the table to the best of our abilities. Then we take like the best aggressive support left. I was thinking it was going to be Alistar, obviously, because it's like an old school meme, but the Leona also makes sense. I think it's a little bit more picked, I think, commonly in this particular section. So now you get your potential grab of your ADC.
Okay. The Ezreal's locked in. You talk about Ezreal with Navori Quickblades and Essence Reaver. We got the Alistar Hover, but the Braum is locked in. And this is a very safe bottom lane, which to me, Rebel, tells me that GAM really want to be playing hard for the top side of the map.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where here's what I'll say about this laning phase. I don't think it's impossible to win it as the Ezreal Braum into melee lanes. I think Braum is a disgustingly good champion. Like the champion got buffed, and it to me has been just like way more of a powerhouse recently than it needs to be. You throw an Ezreal, and that means that like Hughes and Otto stack that. If you're ganking that lane as Levi, you have a couple of good targets because Leona obviously likes to go diving in, and Kai's is pretty squishy at the beginning of the game. I think you can operate on a bot lane style play, or at minimum you could try to break Xin out because style can be safe on their lonesome, where like Leona shouldn't be jumping onto Ezreal freely over the course of the laning phase, which should mean that Xin can go help out and make effects happen in the mid or top lane depending on where they want to go to. Oh, look at that, man. Look at the swagger on their coach. Who is that guy?
This is why we love Hanke, right?
We love Hanke.
That was the greatest coach handshake I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was something else. They got that special handshake tech between the two of them right there. A lot of respect being given between Cerberus and GAM. These two teams go back for such a long distance. These are two of the teams that like have been here since I even started casting way back in the day. So haven't really changed all that much even since then. Had a lot of the same players more than anything else. So for two tenured teams as long as these two have been, it's kind of insane to think just how long they've gone back and how much that these two probably know each other from scrim culture and from everything else.
And I think that's another big thing, right? GAM and Cerberus will know each other very, very well. This isn't a case of two teams that have only been scrimming against each other this year. They've been scrimming against each other for years with largely the same rosters. They will know each other's play styles in and out, which is what makes these drafts so much more intricate, so much more delicately balanced. And I really like what we have. I want to talk a little bit about how we can expect team fights to pan out, because Cerberus makes a lot of sense with this Ezreal. You've got a Braum in front, all of that hoo-ha. But for GAM, you've got a Kai'Sa that wants to be diving into the backline, but then at the same time, you've got this front line of a Sign. You've got an Azir that can shove people around and really change how a fight pans out.
Yeah, it's a situation where I feel like Cerberus is dive outside of Azir. Even the Kai'Sa kind of wants to go diving for the most part. Yato is the only one that more or less kind of plays this more front-to-back type style into GAM, which I think is perfectly fine because you've got the wall to prevent dives if Ezreal or Lee Sin goes diving, even Gragas goes diving. You have ways to kind of disengage that in a situation where like Yato's got the ultimate up and readily available for it. My problem with it is if the engage is not working or if they're having difficulty engaging, Sin's getting caught up just a little bit here, a little bit of extra damage coming in from Artemis. I love Jace into Azir in the later stages of the game for the same reason that you would play something like Vel'Koz or Xerath or Ziggs into this champion, because Jace is effectively just like a siege mage in that particular case. You throw a Q, throw a Shock Blast Gate, and it's going to do 800 damage, 900 damage. It's going to take a third to half the health bar of Yato off before the fight even starts. And then you have no like front to back team fighter in the wrong circumstance that your dive doesn't work, right? If Rano P misses the ultimate, if Pun's ultimate isn't exactly on point, if Drakthar is down the ultimate or doesn't have flash to really set it up, it's going to be harder to try to make the dive happen, especially when Gragas is knocking people aside. Xin is here for the response and catching some of the engage. So I am curious how that dynamic kind of works out with Yado, where it's like, okay, is Yado going to go diving with the rest of the team? Is Yado just going to get sieged up on? Do they need him to play the front back 5-5? We'll see how Cerberus wants to make this happen.
Yeah, one thing to remember as well, I think, with Cerberus and having this dive composition, this is a full AP Gragas for Carti, and there's quite a few tools that GAM have available just to disrupt what could otherwise be a very cohesive dive. We've already talked about the Unbreakable, but let's not forget, you've got the Explosive Cast, you've got the Lee Sin Kick, and you can just shove people away after their dive just to put them in slightly less optimal positions.
Yeah, I mean, you kick somebody out of a fight and put them into like the rest of the team as they're kind of running in, right? If Pun comes in and is in a really bad position, you end up getting kicked into Artemis or something. The fight is basically lost from the side of Cerberus, and GAM just gets a massive win in that regard. So their diving has to be really clean, and again, their front to back I think is harder to operate on as well, just because if Azir takes one poke ability, two poke abilities before anything else, then it's basically up to Artemis to go, kind of killing. But the one benefit to that is that there are not really massive tanks. Obviously, Braum's going to soak a bunch of damage, but outside of that, this team does. It's Jace builds damage, Lee Sin builds a decent amount of damage. Ooh,
are they going to dive this? Level 3, the decimating smash comes through. Kiaya is low, but there's just so much damage, so cleanly done. But Kiaya just takes a bit of aggro, and it's a 1-for-1 in the top lane, which Cerberus will be more than happy with.
Yeah, it is first blood. I'll say I think Pun is perfectly fine with that because he basically neutralizes the advantage. It doesn't neutralize the advantage, but does win out in just pure top lane because he gets armor, he gets a little bit more health, and it's going to be easier to kind of make that happen. I appreciate it. I am curious how he ended up taking damage here, or taking the tower aggro at the end, because he got the kill. Oh, his W! He didn't even need to put it on, I don't think, for the kill on Zombie Scion. Yeah, I was like, how did he take turret aggro? Yeah, the W did not need to activate it in any capacity, but you don't even think about that because you're just like, if you're Jace in this situation, you're like, I just need maximum damage output. If it's any other champion, does not die right there. But because it's Zombie Scion, cost him his life.
Really interesting interaction coming through, and Pun will be more than happy with how that interaction had panned out. I wonder if for Kiai, as soon as he pressed his W, he was like, oh no, why did I do that? The small bit of oversight being displayed by, well, the veteran in the top lane, right? I think our oldest tenured top laner in the VCS and arguably highest performing top laner as well. Speaking of performances, I do want to speak about Yado, because back in 2021 winter, which is pretty much when I started casting VCS, Yado had a really good split with Cerberus. They ended up winning winter split. But then in 2022, I feel like Yado dropped off a little bit. He wasn't performing at that same height. This season, though, an opportunity to kind of get back into that form that we saw in winter 2021.
Yeah, I think part of it is that this kind of setup of champions is much better for Yado. You're not taking a lot of these heavy roaming champions. You're taking a lot more standard type mages like Azir and things of that sort, which has always been Yado's wheelhouse. We always considered Yado to be just like the mage player of the VCS as opposed to anybody else. Like when a new mage champion gets released, our first like thought is always like, okay, how does Yado play the champion, right? Like that's just what we go to. And so in metas where we end up having that kind of more standard mage play where Azir is one of the big players, that usually ends up being a really big power point for Cerberus, is that Yado can play a lot more comfortable of a style of laning phase because this is the champion he's typically accustomed to. So as of this split, where they're playing a lot of those mage type champions out of the mid lane, they haven't been gooning with like Tristana mid or anything like that. Instead, they've been sticking with the standard stuff, and it's been working so far.
First wreck of the game being started up by the side of Cerberus. No Levi around to attempt to steal this one away. Flash forward from Rollo-P. Nice. Cerberus won the fight, and they shuffled two members of GAM backwards. Cartilo flashes over the wall, gets out. Rollo-P has now died as Style makes his way into the fight, but surely Cerberus can maybe turn this one back around. The the Braum passive stacks are coming through as in dives Levi to find one kill, and so many kills coming through. 2-4-1 as Yado slides and glides over the wall, gets to the blast code outside of the Lee Sin Q range, and Levi cannot follow up on the Sonic Wave.
Goodness gracious. It feels like Cerberus right there actually just won the fight in terms of health trade. They killed enough health for 3 champions to go down, but they just barely didn't have the target focus to bring down anybody but one, which is a really unfortunate thing. They do grab up the dragon, and this slide was super good. I mean, you're like, okay, yeah, they absolutely win this. Look at this. Artemis Flash is basically in place, doesn't quite get caught. The Ignite doesn't take him down. They lose one right here, and then they're focusing down. Watch, Styles going to end up getting pushed out. Zin's going to end up getting pushed out. The Flash saves his life. Now here's Styles helper. Everyone's below 200 health. They just can't kill anyone fast enough. That is the massive problem that ended up coming about here. And were it not for that, again, a couple of kills, 1 or 2 here or there, would have easily sprung this in Cerberus' favor. GAM dancing ballerina style on top of Cerberus. Superior team fighting here at the beginning of the game.
And Artemis using that heal quite early on in the fight, just to try to chase down Carti to get that kill. Couldn't get in range. And we also saw at the end, Yado forced to burn his flash because he wasn't sure if he was outside of the resonating strike range. Something happened in the top lane, and I'm going to presume this is Kiaya getting a solo kill.
Yes, it could be Pun getting a solo kill. We're not quite sure yet. I assume it's Kiai getting the solo kill. Yeah, this is what I'm referring to. Like, the Jace versus Sion matchup is not fun for Sion at the beginning of the game. Now, usually he's not getting solo killed, but that is a pretty big win, I think, for one of the big contributors on GAM. As now, I mean, they win a big team fight, and they win the top lane matchup pretty handily. You got to appreciate that GAM has just been kind of crushing this early game.
And a really good start for Levi as well. 2-0-2. And now GAM are looking towards this first Rift Herald of the game before 8.5 minutes. This is going to be a lot of gold going towards someone as Cerberus are finding the pick on it to Carti. Empress Divide to push Carti back towards Cerberus' side of the map on the run towards the Levi. And now has a safety of his jungler. True Shot Barrage not quite going to be able to snipe down any members of Cerberus.
No, really terrifying.
Oh, Levi, that is a brave. Goes under tower with the Zenith Blade lands. Ron OP to the rescue. Sadly, though, for the side of Cerberus, it is Ron OP who claims the shutdown and not Draktar's Wukong.
Yeah, you just get the one kill. It's really unfortunate. That's the second time now that Yado has attempted to set up a massive play. Now bottom lane, they're going for a dive.
Artemis all on his Losum. No Leona to CC anyone down under tower. Final tower shot won't come through onto Zin, so it is just a clean kill for the GAM bottom lane.
Man, just have not been prepared a single time. It feels like Cerberus getting run around the map by the early aggression of GAM. You don't want Cerberus to be able to kind of set their feet and get anything done. So when you're able to kind of do things like this, look how close that this was and how far that Drakthar needed to go just to try to get back in range of Kadi. Hey, goodness gracious. Yeah, like I said, it's Cerberus usually, especially against other opponents so far inside the VCS, have been able to slow down the early begoning portions of the game. I'm not sure what Yado is doing here. You probably think, oh yeah, we should be fine. He's probably not going to go diving, but it does end up costing Levi his life. But when it's traded for the support, it's just not worth it in the grand scheme. And then again, because your Leona had to roam up, you're just going to punish Artemis under the tower. It's a level 5 Kaista. Zin just wraps around on him and says, okay, I don't really care. Nothing bad is going to happen. We're just going to kill Artemis underneath the tower, and it's not going to matter even if he misses this minion wave and we trade lives. I think that's more than worth it. Again, just not allowing Cerberus to get ready for their late game kind of scaling.
Really, really impressive start to the game from GAM, who now find themselves with a 2.5k goal lead over Cerberus at 10 minutes into the game. And we've got another Drake spawning in just under a minute. It will be the Mountain, and Cerberus were able to secure that first Drake of the game. We'll see whether they can maybe get some Drake stacks going as Rift Herald dropped in the bottom lane. This is going to be so much gold going into the pockets of style.
Seeing if they can break the third plate before the Rift Herald ends up charging here. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case, so it will just be almost 2 plates going down and almost taking 4 plates off this tower completely. The early game dominance of Levi cannot be understated so far. Levi has just done everything right. Attacking the top lane, trying to set up so that Pun is not going to be in a good situation, setting up the mid lane, being at the defense of the Gragas consistently, being the primary team fighter, I think. It's been miraculous, again, kind of pushing just how fast that the game is going here for GAM. Just off the back of this one Lee Sin pick. It's not often that we talk about Levi as much anymore. Obviously, Levi has been the captain of this team for such a long time. I think it's been super easy to be like, okay, Styles popped up as being really good. Kadi and Kiaya stepped up as really, really big contributors for the team as well. But when they need him, like, he is still a lich pit. Levi is still an absolute Chad in the right circumstances.
And I feel like to kind of go further onto this Levi point, I remember back in 2022, we were talking a lot as just cover here. Kiaya getting caught out, trying to run out to safety. I don't know where he's going to go. Drakthar ends up picking up the kill, his first of the game. But to go back to Levi, I feel like last season he got a little bit overshadowed by BJ, and we were talking about BJ, you know, being this new big jungler. And we've been saying it for a couple of years, but last season was the season where he really came into his own. And Levi this season showing, no, look, I'm always going to be at the very top. I'm always in the discussion as the best jungler, and always so incredibly consistent.
Oh, this is the replay of what happened gonna go. Yeah, it's a solid kind of gank from Drakthar, because Drakthar was trying to find something to do on the map with the other side. Levi is so strong, it's impossible to play around neutral objectives when Levi shows up. So it's like, what are we supposed to do, right? Like, well, you just attack the other side of the map, you try to get something going, you do shut down the Jace a little bit, you try to get your Scion a little bit tankier so that it's easier. It is going to be difficult for them to break through the Scion eventually. Coming back again, Levi also, when I first started casting here, was also this like super hyper carry. He was playing really heavy farming champions, like he had the Karthus, you had the Lilia. Eventually, it kind of came into the repertoire as well, and these were the champions that he was known as. And slowly over time, really kind of embraced a lot more of the early ganking champions, a lot more of the stuff to set up his team. I think Levi has gained a very, very heavy appreciation for a lot of his teammates over the last 2 years, ever since I think everybody's really been ingrained in the positions that they're in right now for the squad. So for Levi, the personal growth of just like going from, I am the main character, I will be doing everything, to being, he's still the main character, but he is also able to make this supporting role work so effectively when GAM is out on the map and they're able to set up a lot of these solo lanes that you're looking for.
We so often see Levi's, you know, the Karthus. We remember back to the Noct and those big farming junglers. But as we always like to say, in the VCS, if you want to prove yourself as a jungler, it's on the Lee Sin. Every single Vietnamese jungler is just a master of Lee Sin in some capacity. And Levi is the one on the Blind Monk this game.
Mm-hmm.
For now, though, we've got a little bit of downtime in the sense that 3 minutes until the next Drake is up, and GAM can just slowly start to push their leads, pick up any last remaining plays before we hit that 14-minute mark.
Yeah, so taking stock of where we're at right now, I do appreciate that Yato has actually gone for Crown. I think it's beneficial in that if he gets hit by just even a single stray Q from either the Jace or from the Ezreal, it will protect him from making sure that that's not just going to take him out of a fight immediately. So for Yato, I get this one. I do think it hinders your damage a little bit until the completion of your second item, but it's not really the biggest deal. They're probably not going to be looking to fight very, very quickly as it is right now for the side of Cerberus. You need time for Artemis to bake a little bit more too, because Artemis in this one also is still going to be one of your big team fighters. You've got the Kraken Slayer now. I really think that you need a lot more upfront damage as Artemis here, just because you want to be able to just take somebody out if you hit them with an ability, right? If it's Gragas or if it's Levi jumping into the front line, you want to be able to bring somebody down to their knees very, very quickly as Artemis. So while the lethal tempo and having like this kind of overtime damage is going to be useful, they do have to be careful because, again, one Shock Blast takes Artemis out of the fight, one kick takes Artemis out of the fight. There's a lot of danger here for Artemis that you have to be very wary of.
And GAM now picking up their second Rift Herald of the game, and at the same time pushing forward in the mid lane, and Artemis is already on half health. Teleport flank coming through from the side of Cerberus. Solar Flare will get the slow onto Star, but Xin is caught on the wrong side of the map, forced to flash away, but can't get away from Yado, who in turn flashes over the wall. Rollo piece so low from the damage from Kiaya. Shock Blast does so much work onto Artemis' health bar, as in the backline, Pun shows up way too late to the party, and nobody else from Cerberus got an invitation. It's a free kill for the side of GAM and their 8th kill of the game.
And in this particular circumstance, this is what I was talking about. If you're Artemis right here, you cannot find a way into the backline. It was like Rano P, who's kind of getting brought down before anything else, trying to find some sort of angle into Kiaya. The fight was split on two fronts from Cerberus. Pun went in on one side alongside Yato, trying to find a scoop onto the support. And now they're just getting bullied out. Like, look at this. They grabbed the Rift Herald. They snowballed it into 2 mid lane towers off the back of that siege. How is it that Cerberus is able to make the dive happen? Because look, they get an angle on Xin. They don't quite get him over the wall, which I think is what they were looking for. Watch this. Yato can't even get him over top the wall. And then Rana P goes flanking on the other side to look for something. Style and Kiaya are right there. They drive him out. There's a single Q. There's a second Q, and Artemis out of the fight now too. Like, what are you supposed to do? Your damage is already gone. Like, Yato is the best thing that you've got until this point. And Yato is on Crown right now. He's not have the damage to full carry a fight. It's a really rough circumstance for Cerberus because, again, this is a dive composition. They want to be pushing kind of the pace of how these fights are playing out. And Artemis just doesn't have the goal to make that happen. This team doesn't have the goal to make that happen.
They want to dive, but the swimming pool is just not deep enough. So every time they jump off the springboard, they just fall through the water and hit the bottom of the swimming pool, and bad things happen.
Bad things happen. They run headfirst into the concrete, I believe is what you're trying to say.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. That is the third dragon, or second. Oh, it's third dragon of the game. It's second dragon here. That was the one thing that Cerberus did do right, is that first dragon went to them. I think had that fight not gone poorly and they hadn't lost like 3-4 members and kind of made Levi into this absolute beast and set up the rest of the team for massive success, I do wonder if this game would have been a lot different just in hindsight, because getting back to a place where they're going to be as competitive as they need to be in a game like this, I feel like is so difficult now for Cerberus, trying to find a way that it feels like they need a fight win. That's the only thing that really digs them out of a bad situation. I don't know that they're going to be able to sit and scale. They're going to try it now.
They need a fight when they're going in for the fight. Here comes the choo-choo train on the other side of the fight.
Oh my
There's a teleport coming through as well. Glacial Fissure. Drakthar has already fallen. Nice shuffle from Yata, but it is not going to be enough. Cerberus' wallets are just nowhere near big enough, and GAM are just going to run through Cerberus. Sure, Style will fall, but it will still be an ace, and Pun V9 is going to be attempted, but that Scion is just not quite tanky enough.
Like, they just don't have damage. Like, they don't have it. It's not there. Like, if you're Yato and you're throwing soldiers in, you're getting a couple, like maybe 100 damage per auto attack in. Artemis is able to kind of spike single members down, but it takes him a second to get ramped up inside of fights. And because of this, Cerberus' fight just looks so disastrous. Look at this. They get a decent pick on his in. The shuffle is actually awful, in my opinion. Like, this is terrible. No. Look, he just shoves him right on top of Artemis in a half health on, like, Rano P. Like, Artemis dies because of that. Like, I don't know what Yato's thought process was there. I feel like you just slam the door and you walk away and you try to take one kill. Maybe you buy space for Artemis to kind of step up in the pocket and be able to auto attack whoever's still remaining, but that was not it, Chief. This game has felt so disjoint from the side of Cerberus. It's a very rare look at a team fight that doesn't feel like they're communicating properly. And for a team that's been together as long as they have, I don't know what's happening here. It feels like they got jabbed at the beginning of the game and just have never recovered from it.
It was a pretty powerful jab, though, to be honest. That fight at the Drake, it just pushed them behind. And this is a really good composition as well for GAM to snowball with. When Ezreal Q start hitting like a truck, when you've got these shock blasts from Kiaya's Jace, it's just so hard to deal with this much poke, especially when Pun isn't at the fight beforehand. So you've got no Scion to really tank up all of that damage.
Yeah, in this game right now, I mean, you can actually see Artemis is so unable to do damage. He's behind his own support. That's just Pun getting caught. I think they were looking for a flank of some kind. Are we going in or are we not going in? Okay.
No, Pun's just dead.
I mean, Artemis was out of mid lane still running up. I'm not sure what Pun was doing. And then, like, Yato's on the other side of the map right now. Like, again, this is a super disjoint game, it feels like, from the side of Cerberus. It doesn't feel like they're communicating super effectively. They are not setting up for team fights. They're not setting up their Artemis win condition in any capacity whatsoever. This is not a look for Cerberus that they have been showing for the majority of the split. For GAM, the fact that they were able to kind of dismantle Cerberus this quickly really speaks to their level. I was worried walking into the split that it was not going to be the best GAM that we've ever seen, but they actually are still playing incredibly good League of Legends.
And going to what you were saying, yes, Cerberus have looked disjointed. They haven't been able to play to this Artemis win condition, but is that really a fault of Cerberus, or is that just GAM doing a really good job of shutting them out? As, again, another engage from Rono P. Cerberus are desperate trying to find an engage. Kiai just kills Artemis. 1v1 on the side of the fight. Levi gets the kill onto Rono P. It's already 2 kills for the side of GAM. Pun left with nowhere to go, and Drakthar Yato are the stragglers. Yato drags Levi with him, and it's a double kill for the GAM jungler. Pun is going to fall as well. Stahl will pick up that kill, and it is only Drakthar who is left standing.
Yeah, I mean, Draktar's going to get spotted out here. He's going to get chased down by Gragas if that's what they really want to do. Okay, yeah, they're going to see that he basically walked towards the base. They don't care that he's leaving, though. Like, they just want the Baron buff. I'm going to come back to your question. I don't think that anything that just happened needs to be spoken to in the slightest. Like I said, Cerberus, while they've looked disastrous, GAM has been playing really well. Like I said, I think Levi has commanded this game extremely effectively. If you look, it's 15 of 18 kills. It's actually the same for Ezreal as well, so like the two of them. Look at this. How is Artemis in a position where Kiai is able to run at him effectively? Like, there's 3 members right next to you with, like, Pun and Yato and Drakthar, and somehow Artemis is just being singled out here by, like, one of the main damage dealers. How does that even happen? Again, it feels like right now Cerberus is not actually doing what they need to be doing. Like I said, they feel disjoint, which GAM, I'll give them a bunch of credit. If they're the ones that are causing this by just how fast they're playing the game, good on them. But again, it is not exclusively GAM's fault that Cerberus is doing this. Again, ever since that first fight, it seems like just Cerberus has not been on the same page as one another. So hopefully game 2, they can kind of come back together. They can put themselves in a solid place, kind of reorient themselves a little bit, because they're a little bit off in this one. GAM, taking advantage of a team that doesn't have the level of communication you're looking for is not always the easiest thing in the world, but they have made it look so simple to just absolutely devastate Cerberus here.
And it's a weird thing as well with Spring 2023, the fact that there's a few teams that have been together for a while, right? You're looking at Team Secret, you're looking at Saigon Buffalo, and now Cerberus, who are struggling with this communication aspect. I say Cerberus struggling. They are 2-0 in the standings. They are doing well.
Yeah.
You would expect it to be the other way around, right? The newer team struggling at the start of the season and then slowly ramping up as the season progresses and looking at their top form once you get towards playoff for the second half of the round robin.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, Flash has showed us the opposite of that. Out of fairness, Flash is kind of like 3 pieces of a team that have also been together for a ridiculous amount of time. I don't feel like we need
to engage. They're looking for Carti. Carti down to half health. The Cyclone comes through. Carti is low, but will not fall. And surely Cerberus, this is going to be their last hurrah. Ronopi's on the side. He's got no way of getting into the play. It's just the 1 kill for the side of GAM as Yado and now Pun falls 2-0 for GAM as they push on in the bottom lane with beautiful Baron-empowered minions at their disposal.
Yeah, this game was like, they definitely got out-muscled at the very beginning, but even if you get to this stage of the game and you're relatively close in gold, the only thing you can hope for is kind of big one-shot potential coming out of Kai'Sa and the rest of the team. This is a whole... No, it's not.
Levi will fall to the tower damage, but the rest of the GAM will show up a clutch. That's the ace for the side of GAM at 24 minutes. The final Nexus tower will fall. I don't know if Starl can do this. There's a teleport coming through. This is going to be a 2v2, and there are Baron-empowered minions. There's going to be a wave of minions on the top side as well. The GAM don't even want that. Starl kiting back. Yado finding a fair bit of a damage, and here comes Zin this time. Starl ends up getting the kill.
No!
The Pun is a push towards Style. Style will fall. And Carti and Zin will do the work onto the Nexus. Surely Ronopi is showing up, but it is a 2 tanks and there is a too much damage. Artemis will get 1 kill. Zin, surely this Nexus falls. There are too many minions. It's not possible that this Nexus doesn't die, but Cerberus somehow keep the game alive.
Oh my goodness. This is just a time waster. Like, the Nexus is dead. Your middle inhibitor is going to go down. Like, the mid inhibitor tower just felt like all they have to do is wait for 5 members and then walk into the base. That's all that needs to happen here from the side of GAM. Cerberus somehow make that last final miraculous hold. I just don't think it matters all that much. It's not going to make you get back into a game. You're basically an item down on every champion in the entire game right now. So we're just waiting for death here from the side of Cerberus to fix out their early game and everything else. GAM popped off. I got to appreciate Zin catching a little bit of assistance there to make sure that Ezreal was not going to get outdid by Yado. Yado came real close to beating out the Ezreal in the 1v1 there for a second, but Zin came in and ruined everything.
We say 1v1, but it was like Styles' third 1v1.
Yeah, it was like,
he needed a drink.
He really did need a drink. So Zin, I guess, tapped him out for just a 10th of a second so that he could catch his breath and then got him right back into fighting shape. Nothing crazy about that one. And here they are. They can walk up as 5. They've got their members. They're going to look for the inhibitor. It's just going to be one more big fight.
You know when you see those all-for-one games and someone picks Sion and then they all 5-man Sion ult into the base? This is what GAM could go for right now. Levi has a stopwatch, goes golden. However, Drakthar able to get the kill onto Levi, and Cerberus maybe just holding on a little bit faster than we expected. Pun will fall. Cerberus are now retreating into their base. This is a 4v4. Levi is down, and GAM are looking for the final inhibitor.
And this is where I think this is especially where Cerberus' composition is going to get bullied, because now Style and Kiaya can just kind of throw damage. Even Kadi can just throw damage at this team, and there's not much they can do because they have to wave clear the entire time. Yeah, look at that. They just jump on Yado.
Poor Yado. So many minions. So much damage from the side of GAM. Wow, that shock blast did work. Down goes Yado, and this time The Nexus will well and truly fall. A 27-minute win for GAM against Cerberus.
A really solid win from GAM coming in for them. Over top of Cerberus, I think Levi had an MVP performance for not the first time in forever, but definitely probably for the first time this spring. I think that was the first true Levi absolute masterclass. Was really good in that one, killing everybody at the beginning of the game, kind of setting their team off to really solid. They had a better draft. I don't attribute it to that necessarily. I think it was still winnable from the side of Cerberus, but again, for basically minute one, Levi had everybody's card ready to pull at any given time for that death note. So he was making his way around the map, doing some really incredible things. You can see, look at that gold advantage, and so much of it was off the back of Levi, setting these lanes up for success. Look at Style, too. Oh my goodness, Style went nuts in this game.
Style had a lot of damage on that Ezreal, and things just kind of fell apart one by one for Cerberus. But the positive for that is I feel that in game 2, it won't necessarily be a repeat of game 1 just because of how the start of this game panned out. So I'm fully hopeful that heading into game 2, Cerberus can give GAM a run for their money and potentially take us to a game 3.
Yeah, try to find a way. There were a couple of things I didn't mind. While the Jace flex, I think, is a really big fear here from Cerberus, from GAM, because you could throw it in the mid lane. I think Kadi's fine to play it. Kiai is fine to play it. You're okay in either position. So you have to be a bit careful about taking top lane tanks here and getting punished with something farming or something like that from GAM side. Outside of that, again, setting up your team fight should be quite a bit easier in game number 2 now. That's all I want to see. Make sure they don't have range advantage. And if you can ensure that, I think it'll be a bit easier to play things out. Like you said, the beginning of the game was also quite disastrous for Cerberus, so might have been just like it might have been one of those things where if it's in a scrim, they're just like, all right, FF, we're restarting. A game would never happen like this, but here we are. So,
well, they get to FF go next, just that they can't do it instantly at about 15 minutes. We're going to go FF and take a break, and we'll be back in a few minutes' time with game 2 of our series between Cerberus and GAM. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Game 2 of Cerberus GAM. Sorry, I was just having a look at the script for Game 2. I would tell you, Rebel, but I don't want to spoil the game for you. We're going to head, though, into draft for Game 2 of the series. And look at that. Cerberus respecting the Lee Sin, respecting Carty's Gragas. Love to see it.
Interesting. Okay. Notably, I was gonna say Jace is left out from last game. Maokai being banned away didn't happen last game, right? So that's a little interesting. Although Drakthar, I'm sure, is looking for a way to not have to play something directly into Levi after Levi absolutely was crushing in the last game. So, they're like, yeah, you're not getting away with not playing this one.
Ooh, the Varus locked in now. I can't really remember the meta, but I know AP Varus mid has been like this fringe pick lately.
I don't think it's as... Yeah, it is Rumble, and it's locked. Okay, that is... Wait. Did we get Jax locked? We got Jax locked, too. That means we're either in for... Okay, I'm not going to jump the gun on this yet. It is possible that we have either Jax jungle or Rumble jungle, unless this is like a Rumble support flex for Ron OP. Which is funny, actually. You want to know why, Milky? Because of all the champions that you can play at the support role, that can be this really heavy abuse case for like being able to abuse support gold itemization and be able to poke away at damage. Rumble is a melee champion, which means Ron OP can play it. This is not a range champion. This isn't Ashe. This isn't a Heimerdinger. Because it's a melee champion, it is technically capable of Ron OP to play this one. So maybe that's how they found their way around the loophole.
So does this mean Ron OP could also play like Jace and Elise because they can transform into a melee champion? It's therefore
only in melee form. Only in melee form.
Okay,
only in melee
got it.
Yes.
I would love to see Ron OP trying to emulate Carrier with this Rumble support pick. However, GAM have locked in the Cassante, and I'm kind of excited because I've never casted a Cassante game before. So
you've never cast a Cassante game before?
No.
Cassante goes absolutely ridiculously hard. This champion is disgusting. It's also, I was really surprised. I wanted Pun to be really good at this because it's one of those like Pun V9 champions where he's just so tanky and does so much damage that he just kind of runs people down. It reminds me of Dr. Mundo, just a lot more like flashy. It has a lot more CC and a lot better of a champion design. But it's not Pun playing it. Instead, it's going to be the Jax for Pun, which I think is a lot more comfortable for Pun. And this matchup is one that, like, Cassante can kind of crush in the early game if you're not careful, but eventually will get outscaled to the side lane up against the Jax. You're always going to be able to wave clear effectively because you're just such a tank. But, at grand scheme, Ki probably isn't going to be crushing the laning phase the way we saw last time, as it's bot lane combinations. Again, double range support. So I wonder if there's going to be a melee, a different support kind of grabbed up here. And then the Lucian and Karma band here for the side of GAM. What?
Well, I like the fact that Lucian's banned away. This Karma band, though, is a little bit more interesting. Now, let's not forget, we did see a Cassante yesterday. It was played by Team Wales and Nagia, and it was the one game that Team Wales went, what? We've got a Thresh!
Okay, I'm down. That's what we like to see. All right.
So, for people who don't remember, Ron OP was the Thresh who made that insane prediction hook on an Akali Shuriken flip, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, and I will never forget it for as long as I live. Cartido has the Rise locked in.
No. I don't love that. I see, I don't love the Alistar here. Now, out of fairness, if you're looking at champions like, I think Zin's a decent Alistar player. Like, you've got Kadi's Rise, which is like the OG champion. You've got Varus, and you've got Wukong, which are like apparently gold tier champions inside of the meta. And even a Cassante, who's still up there inside the meta as well. This is like, power-wise, I think outside the Alistar, this is an insanely good team for the side of GAM, just from a comfort and from like a champion strength perspective. On the opposite side, though, now you've got like, you got decent poke, you've got good team fight kind of like initiation with like the Rumble ultimate as well. But most importantly, I think Artemis is set up for a lot more success with this like Thresh Aphelios combination that was so good way back in the day here in the VCS. This was really popular all over the world. But the big thing is that like Thresh was like a champion that everyone was picking in the VCS like 2 years ago to a large extent. And it's just been gone for a while. We went to the Leonas and the Alistars and the Nautiluses. And then we had a little bit of time where we had like the Yumis and the Lulus kind of popped up. But Thresh has just been gone from the meta for everybody for like a few years now. Or for like a year or so now, something like that. And I'm glad to see it started to pop back up again, because this is one of the best champions most of our supports have in their repertoire.
Now, I do want to talk about a lot of things, but most important thing is when that draft ended, it was Yado who had the Jax. This is a Jax mid.
Huh? Are we sure that the champions just were not traded properly? I would bid a large sum of money that is not the case. I will bid a large sum of money to you right now.
It's either Jax mid. It's either Jax mid or Yado is playing Jax top.
I am going to make the assumption that is simply an untrue statement.
You can make that assumption.
I will put $50,000 on it.
Be a Jax mid. Okay,
Jackass.
No. Damn it! I swear. Go back in the VOD. Go back in the VOD, and you will see that Yado had Jax all the way until the end.
I don't doubt that, but this is also the VCS, so it's possible that what we saw was a recording of the draft when they messed it up the first time and then brought it back. No, yeah, the VCS is famous for really solid drafting.
Didn't have a delay.
But again, if they recorded it and they knew that it was messed up and then they played it, they just redrafted again live during a break or something like that, like if they're a minute delayed or something, then it might have fixed it. Again, maybe it also just didn't change on screen. Maybe they didn't bother to actually change it on the overlay or something like that.
Yeah, because clearly, when you're doing it on the overlay changing, it's not scripted, right? Someone actually has to click a button to make it do that.
Maybe they do. How do you know? Maybe they do.
Okay, so let's put it like this, right? We literally have an exodia of a VCS game. We had weird random bug in draft. We've got Pun Jax. We've got a Rumble jungle. We've got Ron OP on his Thresh. We've got Varus. We've got the VCS Cal series is back. Karti on
his rise.
On his rise. We've got Levi on Wukong all day long, just trying to cover the fact that his hands aren't strong.
And Artemis on an insane team fighting. Yeah, they've got and Cassante. Yeah, Cassante is not that interesting, but like everything else is pretty interesting in a game like this. So yeah, there's a lot of OG kind of VCS tech that's been floating around here for quite some time. So I'm excited to see both these teams kind of pop off with it. Oh, okay. Wait, range abuse. Oh, see, Ron OP is also a melee champion on Thresh, but he's also got like the range auto attack. So it's like, okay, is that technically count? Okay.
Oh, what a flame style!
Really good.
This is the Artemis Ron OP kind of duo that was like synonymous with Winter 2021 when Cerberus won the split against GAM as well in finals.
Yeah, that was the Mickey Mouse split. I think I called it that a couple days ago, and I'm willing to stick by that because that seemed like such a weird split for a lot of these. It seemed like a scrim split more than anything else. That like they were just using it for experience, and it ended up not having that much. I am really, really emphatic about this. Oh, here we go.
From Draxthar is enough damage. Riz, Cerberus get first blood, and the junglers matching each other beautifully. Draxthar now looking for Levi. Is there enough damage from Levi? No, there isn't. Draxthar with a double kill, and Cerberus are off to a flying start.
You know, if you'd have told me 3 years ago that we would have seen Draxthar picking Rumble jungle and crushing Levi Kotti 2v2 in the mid lane, I probably would have called you a little bit crazy. This guy used to be a Graves one trick, and look at that. Sets up a counter gank, defending his Jace mid lane up against some of the best mid jungle duo, one of the longest standing mid jungle duos that we've got in the VCS. What an absolute Chad maneuver right there. The Rumble has popped up a little bit. I've heard it be a little bit better in the jungle, especially now that the red jungle item has kind of grown into the prevalency. It's really useful at any sort of tick type jungler. So like it's really, really beneficial for Rumble to have in a number of circumstances. Already sets himself up for an amazing game right now. You've got this insane AP. You're going to be able to go for Rocket Belt really quickly, go for a massive burst damage. Love that Draxthar kicks off a game like that. Exactly the way that last time Levi was able to start off the game.
And already a 1k goal lead for the side of Cerberus. And now Draxthar looking towards the top side. Ki and Pun already a little bit low on health. And Draxthar was spotted out by a ward. Draxthar just going to help this wave crash in.
Yeah, pushes it in a little bit with that flame spitter more than anything else. And I don't think sticks around for anything more than just being able to help Pun back a little bit, as it's been a rough kind of go of it here. Pun's just trying to crash the wave so that he can get it back off, be able to come back to lane with a Sheen or something along those lines. Ki can't get to him with the Q. Yeah, you got to wait too long for the Q to pop off, so it is just going to be a back for Pun. As they're already leveraging it. Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Very little mana for style right now, so maybe the Cerberus duo can just bully style a little bit. He does get a bit of mana, I believe, from a potion. Ron OP has flash, flash forward, Gravitum locks down, Ron OP not going to follow up.
Wow.
Instead just a Flazin, good headband at the tower, and Artemis is going to die. Zin with his dying breath keeps his ADC alive and serves a death sentence to Artemis.
Gotta give a ton of props to Zin right there, finding a way to salvage a really, really bad situation, because Artemis played for a very aggressive kind of engagement right there and was able to find the double root, only to end up going down. This was, again, props to Artemis. He has this kind of vicious intention behind him, which I think is really good. Oh, the flay also. I think if it had thrown the other direction from Ron OP, they would have been okay. He wasn't anticipating the flash in from the Alistar, so it might have been a slight misplay from Ron OP that also cost a little bit right there. But 1-for-1's not the worst thing in the entire world. The wave ended up going to the opposite side of the laning phase, so it should be Artemis catching most of this anyway. So it's not the biggest deal in retrospect.
3 kills to 1. Artemis, though, did get a kill. So did Star. Noonquiver picked up for both ADCs. And I guess now just a little bit of a lull state before we see plays for the Drake, or maybe just a play for the top side. Pun flashing forward, lands the counter-strike, leaves strikes forward, Ki dashes back into another brush, and Pun just can't get on top of this dastardly Cassante. And surely this is an easy kill for Levi, and indeed it is. GAM pick up their second kill of the game.
Rip Pun, unfortunately getting ganked up by Levi. That ultimate had come through from Cassante as well. Drakthar's not quite here in time to actually make anything happen. So rough circumstance right there where Pun, again, into a scaling lane. They're safe for days. Yeah, nice try, Cotty. We've got the Lantern to be able to... People forget the Lantern's such an insane ability that like you're able to make that defense happen. No hook to land, but really, really good stuff. And now bot lane safe from a big mid lane roam that had come through. Buys a little bit of space, I think, for Yato to kind of farm up in the bottom lane, or in the mid lane, my apologies. They tried to crash this. I think Drakthar caught it, actually. So props to Drakthar being able to make sure not to get aggressed against and ensuring that Pun does not lose this massive wave. Could have probably lost half of it if GAM had just been able to crash it freely. But the selfless Drakthar throws himself at the mercy of GAM and doesn't actually fall victim.
Did Drakthar just catch the wave, or did he take the wave?
So the wave wasn't mostly dead, so I assume that he did not take most of it. He might have taken a couple of minions just for attacks or something along those lines. Yeah, something like that. Now, imagine if Cotty had also ulted to the top side rather than going into the Thresh Lantern and trying to make a play there. If he had gone top side and then also killed Rumble, and then they could have proxied Pun out of the wave, probably would have been the purely optimal play. But instead, GAM likes to make these double cross-side plays. Last game, they were doing it too, where it's like, okay, they'll hit somewhere on the map, and then they'll hit somewhere else on the map off the roaming pressure. So it makes Cotty's Rise such an insane tool, because they can use that and just warp immediately into a lane after ganking a different lane, which is what just got attempted from GAM. It doesn't always work, but when it does, it is a thing of beauty.
Well, despite Yato getting a gank early on, as Pun is getting ganked once
really,
again.
Guys?
Can he get on top of Ki? I don't think he can. He almost get the kill. Pun V5. No, he can't quite. Pun V2. It's a 1-for-1 in the top lane. Pun will happily take that trade.
Man, what an insane play. He almost did that in the last one, too. I was surprised that he wasn't quite able to pull it out against Levi. Literally a little bit of cooldown away from having this. How is Pun just constantly... Okay, this time it's Pun's fault. I was like, okay, did they gank him? No, Pun jumped in. He chose this fight this time. That's on him.
He didn't see Levi, in fairness.
I don't care that he didn't see Levi.
We've got to play on the picture-in-picture. We'll come back to this momentarily. Flame Splitter will allow Artemis to pick up a double kill. Ronopi will die in the process. This is a lot of plates going into the Cerberus ADC.
We get to bring back the original phrasing, right? It's red-white, so it's time to fight here on the Aphelios. We haven't... Aphelios been out of the meta for some time, but you see that. The red-white gun is set up. They're underneath the tower. They're gonna fight you. It's going to happen. They've got the setup for it. So Drakthar probably just pops the ultimate. You just run under. You set up the gank with Rod OP. Yeah, this is gorgeous right here. Nothing crazy about this one. Yeah, it takes aggro, and then Zin is able to disrupt him, but like you're trading a kill onto the Alistar for a double kill onto Artemis and 2 plates. Absolutely worth 100% here, as Cerberus has set up their main team fighter in such much better fashion than what they did in game number 1.
GAM, though, with the cross-map play, are going to be able to pick up a Rift Herald, which might be some gold going towards Kati. And I really want to praise Kati. And what I was trying to say before we saw that fight on the top side is Kati got ganked early on, despite that he has this really big CS lead over Yado, despite the fact that Yado's on the Jason. You'd expect Yado to be the one with the CS lead.
I would not expect that in current Jace, at least not right now. Not to say that it wasn't always the case, but Rise does have really good kind of wave clear, and it is Kati's comfort champion, so you got that as well. Ooh, do we get more?
Another equalizer
doesn't have ultimate. Oh, yeah, he does.
That sentence will land, cleansed by Zin, and that is going to be the chains of corruption. Down will go Drakthar, and a shutdown for Kati, who continues to gain gold.
Good use of the Chains of Corruption, good use of punishing a melee champion here. That's the one really big issue, I think, for Cerberus, is that they, outside of Pun, they don't really have somebody that's willing to jump in. They've got a couple of champions with decent CC or decent kind of team fighting maneuvers where you've got like Rumble Ultimate, Thresh has got a couple of things that you can utilize for pick tools and things along those lines. But like, nobody is really designed to start a fight. You don't have a Cassante to just go jumping in. You don't have an Ornn ultimate. You don't have like a Scion ultimate. You have no initiation for the most part for big fights if you don't just drop a bunch of damage. And you saw it kind of right there where GAM is this kind of brick house. The equalizer doesn't do as much as they really wanted it to, and after that you just don't have the tool to be able to continue the fight afterwards.
6 kills to 5, just over 10 minutes into the game, and a half a K goal lead also for the side of Cerberus, but a much more even game than what we saw in game 1. The one thing that I am scared for the side of Cerberus is just how devastatingly strong I think Kati is going to become. Doesn't have the Rod of the Ages yet, as I'm going to hold that thought because Dragthar is sneaking his way up towards the top side.
Okay. You have to make Kiai out just a little bit further, but it's just not going to be the case. Ooh. Oh.
Well, Kiai baited Dragthar to come out of the brush. She dropped a ward in as well. Just had a sixth sense that Dragthar might be looking for some evil shenanigans on the top side of the map.
Yeah, it doesn't end up getting anything really crazily from it, but he's able to make something happen. Okay, a lot of damage. Dropped in Levi. Kati's here too.
It's a lot of damage, but that's in the 1v1. Eventually, Kati shows up to make it a 2v1, and Yado is forced to burn his flash. Chains of Corruption come through in the bottom lane. The box finds a slow on to Xin, and Ron OP can't really follow up on this play. The Moonlight Vigil is doing so much damage on Sal. Forces the flash forward from Artemis. Gets the kill, and this time, Xin cannot push Artemis under a tower. Wastes the ignite, in my opinion, and Artemis picks up the double kill.
That was a masterclass at Aphelios. If you're curious about how to play Aphelios, that right there is the example of how just ridiculously powerful this champion can be when you're able to understand how your guns kind of manipulate with one another. Finding this really good aggression angle. Look at this. From the top rope, he hits the Moonlight Vigil, is able to kind of Gale Force in, uses the Dustblade for an additional proc, and all of these additional shots are just like damage you aren't tracking the entire time, right? You're not expecting to get multiple auto attacks in there just from the gun, like kind of skill abilities in the midst of everything. And all of it stacks together in such a perfect way. It's kind of unreasonable. The only other champion that does stuff like this is Lucian when he's got Gale Force, where it's like he kind of pops in out of nowhere with like a Nami E, and then you just get popped for like 3,500 damage for absolutely no reason. You saw Artemis can do the exact same thing on the Aphelios if you are not prepared for it.
Also, I just want to point out, Style, I think he tried to Captain Jack cleanse the binding eclipse from the Gravitum gun, but he did it too early. So he cleansed, and then he got rooted in place, which is, I think, what allowed Artemis to get the kill. Maybe Artemis would have got the kill anyway, but it would have been nip and tuck.
It would have been really, really close. One way or another, the Style was getting driven out of the laning phase and Xin was going to die. So either way, that would have been fine. Honestly, probably, I'm not going to say it ended up better that he died because there's more gold that goes over to Artemis. But it was just a really solid play on bottom side. And again, Artemis now, your primary team fighter, set up a lot better. Last game on the Kai'Sa really did not have a bunch of gold to start with, did not have the team fights go their way. But in this one, Artemis and Ron OP have been dominating the laning phase. So a much, much better ground to kind of stand on here. GAM's not out of it by any standard, but with Artemis being this powerful, this is where Cerberus really starts to shine.
And again, this is just really reminiscent to me of Winter 2021. This is the kind of Artemis Ron OP that we saw where we said, this is the best bot lane in the VCS. We got to Spring 2022, and then we said, what happened? Where did Artemis Ron OP go? It was Huber who ended up playing a lot of games. The meta maybe just didn't suit them, and it felt bad to watch, right? Because we knew how talented this duo were, and they just weren't able to live up to, well, Style and B and Shogun and Taki.
Yeah, I think anybody who hasn't been a long time kind of viewer of the VCS, like if you've been watching, look at it, like,
Artemis.
You see, in the middle of that, you got red white. What happens when you get red white, Milky? You fight.
I'm just that simple. I think him being 5-1 and having Gale Force is the main difference, but it is a 3v3. Levi's trying to get on top of Artemis, and there is a lantern, but Artemis can't click it. It's the shutdown for Levi, and Cerberus will get nothing. Ron OP accidentally clicks his stopwatch and goes golden, so that's one ability effectively that he no longer has.
Okay, now, out of fairness, everybody's driven out of the fight for the most part. You're going to take a bunch of damage. You're not going to be able to stop. It's probably going to be dragging, going over to the side of Cerberus, so they're going to get the Infernal Dragon. If we get a replay of this,
Yes.
I will need to discuss something because that was it was okay. Anyway, when we get to it,
something good or something bad?
Something terrible. Anyway,
okay.
We're actually gonna get it right now. So first off, red white, like, come on, Stout. Yeah. You know better than that. You're an ADC. You understand. This is just an amazing combination of abilities. That time, it's just kind of forcing power. This is where I get confused. Watch this Dragfire ultimate. I'm just gonna sit in silence.
Oh my god!
That is the worst Rumble ultimate I have ever seen in my entire life. And I have played this game in Pisslow, everywhere else. What is that ultimate seeking to do? Are you really trying to cut off Kadi? Not even from his jungle entrance, from running down into another one of your players? Is that what you're trying to do? Imagine if that ultimate had been thrown directly on top of Artemis instead. They wouldn't have been able to kill Artemis, or at least you trade back a couple of kills. That was...
Oh, Yana might die here. The final overload comes through and Kati gets the solo kill. Sorry,
there we go.
Rebel.
Nah, I'm done raving. I'm the card-carrying member of the Drakthar fan club, but that one, that was not the brightest day I've ever seen from him. Kati is also ramping up, like you were saying. So one thing to note is without this massive engage tool, again, if Pun is not inside of a fight, you don't have a lot of really good ways to full engage a fight. That means that Kati doesn't have to worry as much about Artemis just kind of gunning him down before he has a chance to play. As long as he's not hit by Thresh CC, like Kadi can interact with Artemis a large amount of the time because their ranges are very similar with one another. So if Kadi is very, very lucky, Kadi is going to get strong enough to where he can start to fight Artemis and brawl inside of a team fight. Might just end up being a Philios versus Ryze angle here for a bit of time inside this game until somebody comes out on top.
The other thing I want to bring up is, I think in team fights is exactly as you mentioned, right? It's Ryze against Aphelios. How, though, does it work out when you start to include the fact that we might be seeing split pushing? And you've got Ajax and Cassandra that are very good in the side lane. Kati as well, really good in the side lane. So is Jace. Is it going to be a 1-3-1? Are we going to see 1-4? Both teams just barreling 5-man down a lane and then just trying to posture around an objective?
I think that if you are GAM, you are not looking to try to take standard team fights because they have their ADC and their Rumble. Those are the two big things. If they hit a massive equalizer, the fight's probably over. If you cannot get on top of the Aphelios, or if it's set up properly for success, you probably don't win the fight either because nobody's really set up to destroy Aphelios, especially with the protection of Thresh. It's only when you have enough gold and, like, if you're Kadi and you can one-shot Aphelios or if something else like that comes about, if you hit a nice Chains of Corruption somehow, maybe getting that into position is a good way too. Or if Kiaya can kind of soak a bunch of the damage because this is a tank more than anything else. But that feels like it's going to take time. And so a better way to play it right now is Kadi's probably the best solo laner in the game at the moment. Neither one of the other two are going to be able to handle him on the side of Cerberus. So Kadi, leave him in a side lane, let him soak up a bunch of gold, soak up a bunch of minions, get onto like 3 items, get him really juiced up on this Ryze. And when that happens, then you have a fighting force, a fighting chance up against this insanely powerful Aphelios that Cerberus is going to be bringing to the table in these 5-on-5s, especially with the dragon count being even at 1-1 at 18 minutes into the game. I think this is a very viable strategy for GAM to play with.
And I feel like this game has a lot more mileage left in it. And by mileage, I mean a lot of time left. You've already mentioned that both Drakes are 1 apiece. I think it's going to be a while before teams really get towards a soul point. This mid lane outer tower still standing. Equalizer, well, it's better than the previous one from Drakthar, but there was no real cohesion from Cerberus on whether they wanted to commit to the play.
I didn't hate it. I almost would have preferred he ulted the wave right there just directly and then just been like, okay, if you want to fight, like, we'll fight with our wave under your mid tower. That's fine. It's going to die almost certainly more than anything else. Using it right there, I think, to try to chip off some health bar from the defending members of that mid tower. And then it's like, okay, they probably have to pull back. Then we get mid tower and then we can redeploy for one of the objectives. Now it's like, if they stay, which is what they're doing right now, if I were Aphelios and I were Thresh, I would be standing up super far in the laning phase. I would push up mid lane. I would take the mid tower. But it means that GAM has first set up for Dragon if you do that. And you're noticing right now that I think Artemis is the last one to start taking the back. I don't know that Artemis needed a back. I don't know what components you're going to be able to buy as the Aphelios here because you've already got Bloodthirster. I think you just bought that item. So it's a crit cloak. Yeah, he had 1 crit cloak in the tank. I wonder if that was worth not taking the mid tower and instead kind of going for this back so they can set up for the dragon. Assumably Cerberus, they realize that GAM is going to be kind of juicing up, getting ready for a 5-on-5 team fight in a side lane kind of manner. And so they're the ones that want to be making plays for this dragon as one of their win conditions.
Kati just hovering in the top lane, almost found an angle to collapse on to Pun, but Pun didn't get overly aggressive. We do have a Drake in 15 seconds time, and both of GAM's members on the top side have a teleport available to them.
The biggest thing is that if Cerberus wants to play this game correctly and they want to try to generate 5-on-5s, playing around neutral objectives is easily the best way to do so. Because it means that, like, if GAM doesn't challenge them, they get a win condition by just stacking dragons. And if they do challenge them, they get what they want in the 5-on-5. Especially if they're the first ones there, it's easier to hit a big Rumble ultimate. So GAM is playing this game out how we expected them to, and Cerberus is playing this game out, I don't think, quite as well as we expected them to, because I was anticipating them to just go for dragon. Like, they cracked mid tower, had a wave going in, walk into river, like, just sit there. The only problem is that, like, Pun right now has TP. Kiaya is already in this fight. They might just be using this on the side of GAM to get into the river first, which is working right now, actually.
Yeah, and it's going to save a teleport for side of GAM, although Kiaya does. A teleport equalizer comes through. Pun is now in the fight, but Rono P is solo. Zin dashing forward, but look at Pun on the side of the fight. He's forcing Carti and Starlo, allowing Cerberus just to take a 4v2. Pun eventually does, but the health bars are so low from the side of GAM. Artemis with a Gale force forward. Zin will fall. A 1-for-1 top laner for support, but Carti is incredibly low. He's going to have to recall. Does have the teleport available.
Yeah, we'll be able to kind of rejoin this fight, and the biggest thing is that Levi is full health versus, he's currently Artemis with full health. Artemis wants the smoke really badly here, has flash and cleanse. I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to re-engage this to get the dragon, to get the fight. If I were GAM, I would be very, very cautiously.
Oh,
here's
Cody.
Very, very big shot blast. Yeah, that's who we're looking at.
Into the fight. There is a Lantern Realm Warp, won't be followed by anyone from GAM, and in goes Dragthar, steals away the Drake. In and out, all he needs to do, and Cerberus will take their just reward.
And a very big win, right? They take the team fight. They don't lose either of Artemis's summoner spells. They end up in a position where they grab the dragon. That's everything you could have ever possibly wanted. And funny enough, it's actually playing out exactly like we expected it to, right? It was like Artemis was able to relatively free fire into anybody standing in front of him. Doesn't quite have the damage to crack through Kiaya. You can see that as the fight goes on. And the opposite side, it's Pun with a massive flank, but it's Ryze that ends up killing him. They try to pick off Kadi. There's a really good ultimate chain in CC chain. I thought that was going to kind of be the doom of the fight. The problem is Style gets jumped on, and then Pun has no way to go anywhere else. Kiaya kind of turns to make sure that he got space for it. And is Artemis, again, kind of cleaning things up to the best of his abilities. Didn't have, I think, any more killer instinct to keep going. The rest of his team was super low. So again, it came down to Kadi versus Artemis inside of these team fights. They're trying to see how quick the Ryze can get to a point where you can contest this Aphelios before anything else. I kind of want to see a Frozen Heart as fast as possible on Kadi, because that might be the point where you can start dueling 1-to-1 against the opposing ADC.
I also want to point out as well, Pun was huge in that fight, and he's not even a strong Jax right now. He just has the Divine Sunderer. He's going to become more and more of a threat to the side of GAM as this game progresses.
Yes, not only is a just pure kind of team fighter, but also in the side lane, I think it gets a little bit better. But I don't know that there's ever going to be a point in this game. Pun seems like he's too far down to actually really become this massive side laner where, like, Kiaya's not going to be able to step to him. Kiaya's already on 2 armor items. I like, Jax probably isn't going to be able to be this massive, like, crazy kind of split push threat. Instead, just is this one engage tool that they've got. So utilizing him as such, they kind of have to prepare that. Wow, that was insane. A little bit better of an angle on that ultimate. It might have actually led to Style dying or having to actually maybe just dying right there. Dragthar coming close with that ultimate. Getting better as the game goes on, not like that one. So just won't mention it anymore.
And I'm trying to remember as well, what stats does Jax Show give? Does it give just armor, or is there some magic resist?
It gives armor and magic resist, yeah. Okay. And health, I think. I think it gives all of them.
Gives everything. I was just wondering as well, if it was just armor items that Kiaya was buying, and then how much damage could Dragthar potentially do, but does need to get that Void Staff or what's that other item that gives more magic penetration depending on how low someone is?
Shadow Flame.
Shadow Flame, there we go. I always forget that, even though I buy it every single time.
Horizon Focus is also not necessarily a bad option here, because you've got no magic resistance on Ryze, you've got no magic resistance on Style, and if you're trying to cook the backliners of this team with this Rumble ultimate, if you've got a 5-on-5 and it's already been engaged, the engagement's probably going better for GAM than it is for Cerberus. So if you want to counteract that, you throw your ultimate on top of your backline carries. I'm waiting because I didn't think this was going to go that well.
He might be at an item disadvantage, but he's definitely not a damage disadvantage. Pun absolutely abusing Kiaya in the side lane right now.
Yeah, Pun is cooking Kiaya right there. I don't think Kiaya didn't pop the ultimate at any point, so there was a little bit of a damage difference. I don't think Kiaya ever felt threatened right there was the big thing, and so that's why Kiaya didn't really do all that much, just kind of ran away from Pun, didn't have anything happen. Now you got the real side laner, though, as Kadi steps into the position and says, yeah, all right, step up again, bud. Let's see what you got. And he walks away, which is fair. Yeah. They've got an angle for top tower, which they probably should have taken advantage of. They use it to clear out Baron area, but I almost would have liked to see that Yato getting a bit more gold. Yato has been probably the most down bad kind of player inside this game when it comes to gold, was kind of suffering in the laning phase, has finally started to come in, starting to get the scaling with a little bit of lethality. Monamune now done as well. So the shock blasts are going to start hitting a lot worse. This means like if Kadi takes a shock blast, if Style takes a shock blast, and then the equalizer gets dropped down, it is possible they just get one shot from that combination now.
Well, I think it's time to have a bit of a check into the game. 25.5 minutes in, and a 1k goal lead for the side of Cerberus. Remember, GAM 1-0 up in the series. Both teams undefeated so far in the split. Cerberus 2-0, GAM 3-0. Baron is up on the map, but neither team have really found an angle to be able to take it. And the next objective really that we're going to see a fight for is the Drake. The last Drake, Drakthar, was able to steal very nicely with a Proto Belt, followed by a Smite. And if they can get this next Ocean Drake, they will be finding themselves onto Ocean Soul Point, which will be really nice for the likes of Pun and I want to say even Drakthar as well.
Okay, so a few things to note also in terms of itemization. It's Zonia is done for Kadi, so he's got a bit of armor and also can go into stasis. That's nice when you're fighting up against the Aphelios. Aphelios is finished Infinity Edge, but doesn't quite have Lord Doms yet, which means that Kiaya is still a very legitimate threat, and even Kadi with a bit of armor is still a bit of a threat, although Artemis is still insanely powerful, do not get me wrong, just that the two Mega Tanks might cause a slight issue for them. And Shadow Flame is now done also for Drakthar. So that is a large amount of penetration against squishy targets that you really can kind of pop and get a ton of value from. So just as a note,
Is soloing Drake?
That's very likely. Rise pops off, man. Like it's Rod of Ages Rise. He has the sustain to do it. Actually just got it and can TP to get into this fight, or can Realm Warp. They got to go fast though. Like they're losing. Baron's gone.
This Baron is going down so quickly. I don't think GAM were expecting how far Cerberus could burn it down, but with a 6-2 Aphelios, as an equalizer drop down just to get a slow onto Zin and Levi, Cerberus fishing for a potential engage. In the end, can't find any way through. It's a trade of Baron for Drake, with Cerberus getting the better end of that trade.
Yeah, the optimal gun-taking setup for that Baron buff is green-white. That's exactly what was held. Again, Artemis is shown a mastery of knowing which guns to have in what situation and how to operate on them, which has been super cool to see, because he's one of our favorite ADCs for a reason, one of the best, if not the best ADC in this region for a reason, and showing the mastery of the Aphelios. Was a champion that he didn't play a ton all the time, even when it was super popular. He wasn't the largest Aphelios. Like, I don't remember him too much for his Aphelios all that much, but this game making me rethink that decision, because obviously going absolutely crazy on this one, looking to try to clean up a game. And now with the Baron buff, like you said, setting up for another Dragon in 3.5 minutes. More importantly, trying to break some of these inner towers. This game feels like it's been at a stalemate for a decent amount of time, and this might be the first opportunity one of these teams has to actually break that stalemate.
And while stalemates are boring, it just allows us to feel the kind of tension rise up. And then you know that the next fight is going to be such a big fight that could potentially determine the game or lead to another big fight over some ridiculous objective. But it gives us time to breathe. It gives us the time to break down the game, as you mentioned. Karti, having that stopwatch, now has a bit of armor to deal with Pun and Artemis. Artemis does not have that Lord Dominic's regard yet, which will probably be the next item he looks towards.
And notice penetration now built for Jace, so this is getting a little bit better, but Frozen Heart is on the docket for Kadi. Oh, there we go.
Kiaya is on the flank. The equalizer is going to stop GAM from being able to follow up in the play. Artemis is pretty much out of this. A fight, and isolated is Drakthar. Murdered is Drakthar. And GAM get their 9th of the game.
Deep flank coming in from Kiaya to be able to find a massive play against the one magic damage dealer of the team, as Drakthar not able to get anything. Again, Chains of Corruption, they're able to fish a little bit better, and I think that's something you have to pay attention to. Flash as well from Xin, being able to, kind of try to grab Artemis from somewhere could be a massive way that this team finds something. But sieging up, they've got the Jace, they've got the Aphelios. It's hard to wreck into this team with the Baron buff. So they crack one tower, looking like they're going to transition into bottom lane, crack the second tower as well.
Drakthar, though, still down for another few seconds. The next objective will be the Ocean Drake in just over 2 minutes' time. Cerberus will not overcommit. They know they have a numbers disadvantage in the grand scheme of things, even if Kiai is on the top side of the map, has a teleport available. So it's just going to be back to the standard pushing waves. And this Baron power play from the side of Cerberus, not really good. In fact, they lost gold if you consider how much gold you get for taking Baron, which I think is about 1.8k.
Something like that. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. They grabbed a couple of towers. They gave up some gold in a couple of places. I think this game was already super close, like within 1,000 gold, so they ended up getting a bit of a gold advantage. The important part of these itemization breakpoints, Lord Dom's still not quite done for Artemis, and they've got a minute 35. This is supposed to be their setup timer right now, and they've jumped it by a little bit. If I were GAM, I would find a way to fight like as fast as possible. Like fight Artemis. As soon as you see him without Last Whisper kind of completed or without Lord Dom's completed, you know the armor pen is not quite to where it can be here in a bit of time. Artemis is probably just going to be power farming as much as possible to try to crack onto that item so that this, the Frozen Heart isn't going to do that much, and all this armor that's going to be sitting on Kiaya, even Xin isn't going to do that much. And when that item is broken, that's when Artemis is going to be at the most dangerous. So if I were them, I would look for it.
Well, they're not going to find that window anymore.
They don't, no.
Just completed now.
Right.
There's a stopwatch available for Pun as he's building towards a Zhonya's Hourglass, just so that when he gets on the backline, he can stay alive, especially if you get caught by a Rune Prison or Chains of Corruption. You just want to be able to pull it into stasis, go to sleep for a bit, and then come back once all of that CC has disappeared.
Yeah, usually use it as a weapon against squishies in a number of circumstances, but given that Pun is primary engage here, I think it makes a lot of sense because it's your best way for being able to kind of go into the enemy team and then not die immediately afterwards, which is what happened in the previous fight. That if you could buy even just a little bit of time for your team to push back, especially if Artemis is able to buy a bunch of space for you to kind of live inside of, it's going to be the best way to make this happen. Yato also, again, massive difference maker. That is a big ultimate drop. Styles health bar a bit. Can't quite get onto him. That's unfortunate. Yeah.
How quickly does that ultimate come off cooldown? Because if actually looking at the timer, it's very quick. So Cerberus just fishing for a potential engage. They're not going to want to fight again until the equalizer is back available. But that being said, they're just going to start on the Drake anyway. Kati and Pun on the top side of the map. They have teleports available. GAM will not contest
this
the Drake.
This is the right play. Yeah.
And they're just going to go for this mid lane outer.
Mid-outer, and then also top-inner. Those are the two things that you're actually getting here. Actually, Kati's TPing in because they're worried about a fight.
Pun's just run in from the side, looking to get on top of Kati. Now there's a teleport coming through from Kiaya as well. Xin is down to half health. Good death sentence is going to land onto the Kiaya. And there's no way out for the Cassandra. Shut down, picked up by Drakthar.
They've got a ton of damage on this team, and it doesn't shock me that even Cassante, who's got a ridiculous amount of, just an unreal amount of resistances at the moment, is just going to get shredded through by this team. That might be enough. They might legitimately have enough to just go pushing into the base off the back of one pick, and everybody else kind of being scattered to the wind, not wanting to get picked off easily mid-inhibitor tower. And there's no fight to come out here either. Like they just lose mid-inhibitor. They're not going to snowball into anything else, but they are going to look at Baron, which I think makes a lot of sense. You're down Kiaya. Yeah, Equalizer is going to prevent them from just kind of walking up anywhere, but I would have preferred save it, again, just for a couple more seconds. But Baron buff easily the target now for Cerberus, as they're down a member here on GAM. They don't have their frontliner.
And look at that again. Artemis, green and white guns for the Baron, going to be absolutely able to shred through it. Pun is just on zoning duty. He's given a beautiful lantern to get out to safety. Cerberus onto Soul Point. Cerberus with the Baron buff as well, and things are starting to look good if you're a fan of seeing game threes.
I didn't hate this in a number of circumstances. I really do think the double TP from GAM felt really overcommittal for no reason, other than that they were worried that a fight would just get kind of forced upon them in any circumstance, and they lost so much of their front line before Kati could step in and do any damage that it was disaster from moment one. It feels now like GAM has no way to win this game. Like Aphelios is way too strong, Yato is way too strong, Drakthar is way too strong. They have too much damage that, like, even if you engage properly, it's not going to happen. They're trying to make a pick happen.
Pun v9, but the teleports are coming through. Pun is not on his own. He has his team around him. Really good death sentence is going to land onto Kati. Forced to go golden. Yada golden on the other side of the fire as Pun jumping forward, finding damage onto Kiaya. Style goes golden as well. So much damage is coming out. Cyclone's going to find knockups. Artemis flashing forward. Finds one kill. Finds Levi. Finds Sid. Cerberus white but GAM. And that will be the ace. A triple kill for Artemis and 5 for 1 for Cerberus.
ridiculously close at the tail end of that fight right there. Artemis almost goes down to Cotty, but he has way too much sustain, way too much damage, and that's the game right then and there. It is GAM trying to find a pick. It's GAM trying to find a fight on their own terms. That they almost get it. They are so close, but just cannot make it happen. They do not get the angle for Rise. They're fighting in the midst of a minion wave. I think Cotty ended up losing a bit of damage off of that, and if it weren't for a couple of those kind of not hitting, maybe there's a chance that they end up shutting this down and staying in the game, but they waited way too long. Aphelios got way too strong, and Cerberus takes us into game 3.
This is the Cerberus we wanted to see in game 1. GAM pulled off a masterclass in the opening game. Cerberus bounced back absolutely phenomenally. And who knows where that leaves us for game 3.
If you're gonna play a slow game, you don't do it against Cerberus. You don't do it against Aphelios. You don't do it against a team like this, man. It is ridiculous. You can see that, like, I the ability to see damage charts, I hope pops up for us, because like I know Aphelios is gonna be crazy, but I bet Jace is up there in this game. Like, Jace probably went completely ridiculous in a game like this, without even seeing it. Yeah. Inside team fights, you can see it's like Artemis inside of a team fight was the #1 reason that you can't take 5-on-5s. So then GAM just didn't take 5-on-5s all game, and so that means that, like, you know, like, you're gonna get padded stats as Yato, you're gonna get padded stats as Drakthar, because they're the ones with all the damage from a range to really work with for like these big range. But that last team fight, again, they're just trying to find something. They're trying to find any semblance of an ability to take an engagement to try to make something happen. They lost their window. It just got slammed on them so quickly here for GAM. It's a great reason why you don't play this style against Cerberus. Cerberus is so good at team fighting. They've got one of the best team fighting ADCs inside the league. You've now learned your lesson. GAM, go back to early game stuff. Show us what you can do at the beginning of the game and throw a cog into the system. Because now, fighting for first place, you got to win this game or you're out. You lose your first place spot here in week number 2 or week number 3.
Absolutely. Well, the Cerberus emblem is some dogs, and in game 1 they were the puppies, but now the hounds of war have been unleashed. We're going to head into a short break, and we will be back shortly for game 3 and the final game between Cerberus and GAM to decide who will be at the top of the VCS standings. Welcome back, everyone. We've got a bit of a banger on our hands between Cerberus and GAM, the only two undefeated teams left in the VCS vying for that top spot. GAM took game 1 very cleanly. Game 2, though, Cerberus bounced back, and now we're getting ready to head into our third game of the series.
Yeah, old school rivals finally sitting back at the top of the VCS here once again at the beginning of the split. It's been a hot minute since these two have been like the top dogs for as a combination at the beginning of a split. So now a little bit of a match that we've had here. Game 1, it was GAM kind of pressing down the gas pedal to be able to kind of crush the beginning of the series, and Cerberus in game 2 playing their kind of old school slow style, bank on Artemis, that type of thing, to be able to win out big team fights. So game number 3, a lot of excitement potential here. Like, what are these two teams going to do at draft? How are they going to adapt their in-game? Because we've had two entirely different games stylistically from one another. Compared to what we've seen from most of the teams over the course of the split. I'm really excited to see this clash that we've got between the two teams.
And you say as well, Cerberus, slowly scaling up, as I do believe picks and bans are going to be ready for us soon. Let's not forget, before 10 minutes, Artemis was about 5-0 or 5-1. It didn't take him long to get those kills. And yes, it was a slow game where Artemis scaled, but he got a lead very early on as well.
Yeah, I mean they played it slowly. It wasn't a slow advantage thing by Artemis was popping up for minute 1. Yeah, he was quickly killing them. He slowly won the game as well. All right, what is available? Wukong is available if they want it. Jace is no longer available. Jace has popped up as like a massive pick in this series, so it makes sense that that's actually being banned out now on red side. So Elise is still available if that's going to be available. Varus is still available, but that got played in the last game. Obviously got kind of trounced. Ushinami still available. Ooh. Back to Aphelios.
This is going to be the salty run back for GAM. Look, we lost with the Varus in the previous game. We'll win with it this time.
Interesting. I think Pun is having a bit of fun at our expense right now by just hovering a bunch of random champions.
To be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing an Olaf, role-playing a bit of Adam from the LEC, just run through the chains of corruption and just run at GAM. He had a very good performance on the Jax in game 2. Hopefully we get to see his Jax once again.
This would be a little bit wild to see, because you'd be holding your AD pick. They've been doing this consistently all series, where like Artemis has waited until second rotation to grab the bot lane completely. So they've been picking their solo lanes rather fast, which is interesting. Although it is Pun's Jax, I think that's something that they really want all the time. And then of course, like Drakthar gets the Sejuani, I think it's a bit easier to kind of pilot. It's not the same champion as Maokai by any standard, but I think it accomplishes some of the same things. You don't get saplings, you don't get to build AP, but you do get to be this kind of forcing maneuver for your team with the ultimates. And being a melee champion, you have quite a bit of dueling power at the beginning of the game with Sejuani as well, so Drakthar can make things happen quickly. Finally, also, it's the Varus Heimerdinger combination. We haven't seen it because it's been banned out every single game. But now Heimerdinger, they put some priority on it. Zin's going to get his hands on the champion.
I wonder if this is going to be something like a Karma angle then for the side of Cerberus, just to deal with that poke of the Heimerdinger and return the favor as well. We saw that Karma being banned by the side of GAM in game 2. And we talked about in the last draft how we got, Exodia, a lot of old school picks. Carti Galio.
God, yeah. Ugh. Disgusting.
That's that I was hoping for.
That champion, like, not only is it, like, Kadi is fine at the champion. I think everybody in the VCS is fine at the champion. The only one who's allowed to pick it when it's not meta is Froggy. And that's because Froggy's played the champion, like, Froggy did that cool flash maneuver where he avoided the scuttle crab on the top side. And ever since then, like, he's earned it. All right, he's earned he's paid his dues. All right, everybody. Everybody else in the VCS only picks it when it's meta, and they deserve to do that because it is meta. But I don't like that champion. I don't think it's been good inside the VCS. I don't think they use it effectively. I guess Team Secret's allowed to pick it if they pick Nocturne or Camille as well, because you get the Galio delivery, and they kind of specialize that from back in the day. But I digress. I don't want that champion anywhere near here right now. That's not the champion for this draft. Ooh. Okay.
Zeri is cool for Artemis, and we saw just how big Zeri was in 2022 with pretty much every ADC playing it to great effect. Zeri back in the meta now, paired with the Karma, with Artemis piloting the champion. This could be big for Cerberus.
See, before the slight rework that kind of changed up Zeri. I don't think Artemis looked particularly comfortable. I'm not saying he was a bad like Zeri player by any standard, but it seemed like Artemis was never really like fully acclimated to the Zeri. And I'm hoping after the changes that it feels like a champion he's more willing to kind of dive into, because you do get a bit more counterplay in some of the early levels. You can see an all-in at level 2 is a very legitimate thing that like Lucian Namis get afraid of. Is that an Orianna? You just lock an Orianna in this game? Wow. All right. Cool.
And you've got a good ball delivery system as well with the Gnar and the Wukong. Really good way to get into the backline. And if you can catch Artemis with that Shockwave, follow it up with something like the Gnar Ultimate and the Cyclone Chains of Corruption, you can really get rid of this Zeri very quickly. But the Sylas is a very nice counter pick, especially considering there is the likes of that Gnar that you can steal the Gnar ult from.
Yeah, you love that one. You love the Heimer ultimate. You love the Wukong ultimate. You kind of like Chains of Corruption. Like, there's a lot. Your cup runneth over with ultimates here if you're Yato on this Sylas pick. They are low range with a Karma, so they can be delivered into the enemy team relatively quickly. But there is one thing to pay attention to, which is that they are relatively low range into Orianna, Heimerdinger, Gnar, and Varus. Like, it is a hard to execute composition because you have to go jumping into the enemy team to make sure that you are getting the most out of everything that you are kind of drafting here on the side of Cerberus. So that is one thing to pay attention to, is with the range advantage that GAM currently has, it could be a very legitimate risk kind of diving into the midst of this enemy team, taking a bunch of damage, especially, again, with Heimer being able to hold down positions so effectively. You're going to have to really kind of close in on an engage when you want one.
And I always like to talk about and theorize how teamfights will break out. And I think if we get something like a standard front-to-back teamfight, I'm just wondering where the front line is for GAM. Because if you catch GAM when Gnar is still in mini-Gnar form, there isn't really much of a front line. Sure, you've got Gnar and Wukong, but there's still more of the bruiser styles rather than an actual front line like the Sejuani for the side of Cerberus will be.
Not to mention, like, there isn't a ridiculous amount of dive threat. Wukong will be able to be ball delivery. I think Gnar can also go diving as well. But if played properly, Artemis should be perfectly fine. So that is another really big risk. Is like, how much can you get from either side's dive? Because that's a very legitimate question mark that has to be answered as of this game.
And Artemis should be able to stand relatively far back. We actually saw it in the previous series today, where it was just a case of having short range versus a long-range composition. In that game, it was Team Flash with the short-range comp, and they managed to get enough of a lead that they could snowball it. Cerberus looking for maybe some shenanigans over on the bottom side of the map.
Oh, this is awesome. Oh, please. Please give me the wraparound. Do it.
Oh, no.
Yes!
Carty
yes!
trying to get caught out, and the follow-up from Cerberus flashes away, and it is first blood for Punch Jax.
Okay. A big win here coming out for the side of Cerberus. Actually, probably would have been more. I have to give Zin a ridiculous amount of props. It was a Q coming through from Ron OP that actually tagged one of the turrets that was placed down, I think, a second beforehand. And if that had tagged on a Style, they probably kill Style as well. So Style, or at least had to burn his heal, something like that. So very, very little burnt here. It was just the flash of Pun, and Pun already has the Q. So you're going to be out of most situations relatively freely. A nice way to kick off the game here from Cerberus, as now your top laner is in a great position. And this was so awesome. Like, okay, they saw two. They kind of saw like this little engage. Really? They got. We're not serious right now, right? They saw 3.
Did they realize it was a different person, or did
they had 4 people shown, and 2 of them were shown walking to the left? How do you fall victim to that? That was what I was talking about with the Q. The Q right there was what blocked and made sure that Style wasn't going to get kind of run afterwards. That was so bad. Like, how did... Okay, now Artemis is dying.
Forced to flash away, but look, GAM have used all of their sums in the bottom lane. Ron OP still has a flash and ignite, but it will force Artemis to recall, reset. Same for Ron OP, and GAM can maybe try to get a bit of a freeze going.
Yeah, again, Zin seems to be playing pretty well. The Heimerdinger, especially at the early levels, can be very, very rough to deal with in the wrong circumstance. So I can appreciate that Style and Zin taking this really, really abuse case kind of bot lane with their range advantage and using it as fast as possible. Ron OP goes for Comet, isn't going, also goes for Q at level 1, so you know that there's no defense against it. So Artemis getting kind of thrown to the wolves a bit at the beginning of this laning phase. Gets a bit back for GAM, that's quite nice.
And also, let's not forget, Pan had a really good Game 2 on Jax. Now he's heading into Game 2 with an item advantage because he has boots. And Drakthar, again, counter-jungling Levi as he has been trying to do all series long, but is Pun going to have enough time? Has a counter-strike. They're going to land the CC onto Levi. Kiaya can't really follow up. Has stacks of Everfrost landing on top. Levi gets a kill onto Pun. Surely Draxar gets a kill back.
No way!
Levi picks up the double kill, and it is the exact opposite of game 2.
Within a single auto attack of his life 2 times in a row, somehow Levi pulls both right there. I am so astonished that this was going to happen. It was so close. They were trying to find Kiaya. It was a nice flash from Kiaya. The CC layering was not bad here. This is where I got confused, because, like, yeah, this right here, he got the empowered W! How did he not die to that?
Oh my god, and then the Triumph kicks in, or is it
Grace,
whatever, but...
I mean,
you've got to feel bad if you're Drakthar and Pun.
Especially Pun. Again, like, if you're Drakthar, the Triumph, like, ruins it, and it's like, okay, I get it, right? Conqueror stacked, the Wukong's doing fine, like, at that point, like, you're just getting out-sustained, you're not winning that fight. I would have been pissed if I were Pun, and I'm sitting here with a longsword, and I have an empowered auto attack with the W, and it doesn't kill him from, like, 100 health. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. That had execute written all over it. He had to be down to maybe single-digit health right there because his health bar was covered up by Pun's health bar. I do not know how he lived that. It's really astonishing that came through. So very unfortunate, but GAM does climb back in with a solid gank. Once again, it's Levi, his early game presence, making himself known, making sure Cerberus doesn't get to sit here and scale.
Now, fortunately for Cerberus, it wasn't first blood. So, to be honest, it's not as bad as what GAM had to deal with in game 2 when it was Drakthar who essentially did the same thing he did just now, but was able to get 2 kills in the mid lane for Yado.
Yeah, the other thing is that it's not as bad for Cerberus to deal with on one hand because of that. The other thing is that Pun also burnt the flash of Kiaya and has kind of been crushing Kiaya in the laning phase so far, which means that, like, Pun could, in theory, generate some very kind of individualistic pressure. Again, his Jax expertise is kind of ridiculous comparative to a lot of the other Jaxes that we've seen. I don't think we've seen many other Jaxes in the VCS. It's mostly been Pun playing the champion, and he's been a masterclass on it. So this is a very risky thing that the Gnar could end up suffering a bit for the next few minutes while the flash is down.
I'm trying to think which other top laners in the VCS tend to play Jax. I almost want to say Nagia. The only other one I can think of with a few Jax games.
He has a tendency to vibe check. I think Coded does as well. So the Coded is the other really big Jax player that we have. So.
Thing is, I never think of Coded as a Jax player because I just always remember that one split where, we've got action in the mid lane. Yado and Kati trading, both of them level 6. Here comes Draxar. He's ruining the 1v1 agreement. Kati, though, running for his life, able to get out to safety, and considering the rest of GAM are in the river, Draxar cannot aggress any further.
Yeah. Okay, again, Drakthar feels really quiet. That top lane gank, that gank right there, not working out either. Not able to find Katakati fast enough, and the Dragon having gone down. It's just earlier pressure that's coming through from Levi that is unresponded to by the Sejuani at the beginning of the game. It's a difficult position to find yourself in. Not down completely. 500 gold is 500 gold. It's not that crazy to begin the game. But again, if Levi continues this kind of control of the map, could be really, really awful for Cerberus. We saw how that happened in game number 1. Also, notably, like 6 of our top laners have played the Jax, including 3 games from Kiaya. So Kiaya also plays the hell out of the champion, just as an FYI.
I feel like Kiaya just plays everything. He's just been...
Kiaya plays everything. You're right. Like, in terms of people who are famous for it, again, it was Pun, and it was like, I would say Coded is number 2, at least before the rework. Yeah. Coded was like a super big Jax player, but now everybody plays it because it's just a strong champion.
Yeah. Well, a 400 goal lead for the side of GAM, not a big lead. Also, I'm just having a look on the top side of the map, on the mini-map. You can see Drakthar working his way up, sneaking into that lane brush, and going to give a present to Kiaya's Gnar, I'm sure.
Still down flash. This is the right place to play. If you try to get Pun ahead in a game like this, you can get your front line up a little bit better. You can try to crack some extra plates. Looks like they kind of got found out, unfortunately, and are not able to make the gank work. So it's another wasted bit of kind of play from Drakthar, who just has not been able to make anything stick so far. Bottom lane is at least not disastrous, which is important. Notably, again, the Zeri is able to get out of the lane phase pretty decently so far. They should be able to kind of redeploy after this and feel okay about where they're at inside of the game. So Artemis, still this kind of later scaling win condition that has not been shut down in the game yet. So you do have that for Cerberus. You got that going for you. Yado also feeling fine in the game. I know he died, but again, the Silas still has a bunch of ultimates that are going to be really useful when the fighting starts off. So. Oh, Yato didn't. Oh, my apology. Yato almost died. He and
yes.
Kati traded a bunch of health earlier. For some reason, I thought he died, but he did not. So, my bad.
To be honest, it felt like both of them should have died in that trade. It got so close.
I do also hate Yato, so I just imagine that he died. It gets in my head.
You know, what happened to Caster's professionalism? Like, oh yeah, we're completely unbiased.
Dude, I don't actually hate Yato, but I'll be biased. Like, that's fine. I'll play that game. That's all right with me.
Yeah, you know, you've got to hate Yato, so I guess I have to hate Kati now.
Those are not mutually exclusive events. I can hate both of them
equally. Oh, you hate both of them equally.
I can.
Fair enough.
If I wanted to, I could. There's nothing wrong with that. That was a neat little trick using the extra turrets. Xin kind of roams up, throws 2 turrets down around the Rift Herald, and then just bounces back to bottom lane to be there a little bit quicker for the defense. It does still force style off of a wave. And in fact, again, I always am a little bit curious about these trades, because if it ends up being 2 full plates over to Artemis, it's 2 full plates to your ADC, guaranteed, to, at best, the jungler getting 2 full plates, maybe a full tower if you're able to set it up properly. But again, it doesn't always get you anything more than just the guaranteed. Well, it's not even guaranteed 2 plates anymore, depending on what turret plates are actually taken. So I don't know. I feel like I take that trade all day if I'm Cerberus, but...
Jai getting a really nice trade on to Pun on the back end of Pun's engagement, as we got a fight on the top side river. And it is Levi getting a kill with some assistance from Kati. Now Drakthar is on the run, flashes over the wall, and Levi will follow suit.
Just trying to get cute right there, going over top of the Raptor wall, and gets flashed on afterwards. Does that say, again, the Wukong-Orianna combination, you know the ball delivery is going to be strong, and now with Wukong being kind of fed inside of this game, it sets up so much better for it. This is Yato's fault. Yato, you are a troll, my man. Like, I mean, come on.
He thought Drakthar's nearby. He thought he had the damage or something.
He doesn't have it completed either. He's got Catalyst right now. He's jumping. What Levi does, though. Like, you're gonna fight against the Drakthar might have a completed item. All I know is that Levi had components, and like Wukong is a really good duelist at the beginning of the game. You don't have the damage on Yato. You're down half a health bar. I'm convinced he was trying to steal the Scuttle Crab, and when it got taken, he just wasn't ready for it to not be there, and so he accidentally took abscond without realizing it.
Jai using the ult just to push a Pun away, but GAM extending their lead now, 4 kills to 1, a 2,000 gold advantage. And remember, in Game 2, Cerberus got, I'm not going to say a lucky lead, but they got a fortunate lead, and they were able to use that very well. But GAM did a very good job at being able to effectively neutralize their deficit for quite a large portion of the game.
But they did. Well, neutralize their deficit is one word for it. Another word for it is cannot find a way to actually make anything happen. That's probably the verbiage I would use specifically, because GAM, if they tried to team fight, they would be walking directly into the meat grinder that was Artemis's Aphelios. In this game, there's no Aphelios, and instead it's Zeri, and she's not disgustingly fed. She's fine. Like, she's right on the power curve. I think with most of the other members of the team, farming about is you would expect them to, and no more. Not really anything else crazy. So that is a decent number of plates. That is just the 2 plates, though, just as I'd said earlier. So it is a match of what they were able to get on the bottom side. But that does buy them second dragon of the game, which is the first time that either team has actually held the first 2 dragons over the series. I think every other time we split the first 2 dragons, which has made like the stacking game quite a bit more difficult for both sides. But in this one, first time that we've actually seen both dragons go to one side. So now GAM are the ones pressuring with this early aim control.
Might have a little skirmish here in the bottom side river. Kati is here. It's just trying to position the Orianna ball. Yato is on a potential flank, spotted out by a control ward. Both ADCs have completed their first item, but Artemis's first item is significantly more impactful than Styles Yomu's Ghost Blade.
I mean, the additional poke is going to feel really rough for Artemis and for anybody that's not really building armor, which is nobody right now on the side of Cerberus. So that is at least one thing. The additional move speed means you can set up plays with Chains of Corruption a little bit easier. For Artemis, you're not going to get one shot, which is perhaps the one thing, is that the shield bow is going to prevent you from just dying outright to like a WQ coming out. Oh, there we go.
Chains of Corruption come through. So much damage with the Empower W from Xin, flashing forward, drops down the Ignite. Rod OP will fall, and there is nothing Cerberus can do in return.
Yeah, there's no shield bow on Karma, unfortunately, so there's no defensive shield to actually be utilized right there, except their own, the Ignite. In a perfectly kind of chained version of CC, which I can really appreciate because it was style hitting a Chains of Corruption from a good distance away without having to burn flash. You'll see Chains of Corruption from a decent distance. WQ, knock her down to half health, and then the empowered W coming out from the Heimerdinger as well with the flash ignite from Xin just to clean things up. This is what the bot lane's supposed to be doing. This is what the Heimer Varus is really intended for, is just to be this super aggressive, super annoying combination that like you can definitely all in on if you're able to hit just a little bit of CC, especially on this first item spike. That's really big, is scrapping in the top lane.
Yeah, and Kia is doing all right. There's a big minion wave. Pun is now very low. Sidesteps the boulder toss beautifully. One more auto. That's enough. Glacial Prison comes through. Dragthar will be able to get Kia as he tries to hop to safety. A 1-for-1 in the top lane, but Kia will take it.
It's just not enough, though. Like, Cerberus, it does not matter if you end up trading a kill Sejuani for Gnar. Like, what does that benefit you for having? Like, right now, Drakthar is down 20 minions, and he's down a ridiculous amount, both in the jungle item and just in general to Levi, because Levi has picked up 4 kills in this game. You've done nothing to slow down the Orianna scaling. The bot lane, now you've got Rylai's on Heimerdinger, which means it's even harder for these melee champions to engage into a 5-on-5 around a neutral objective. So if you wanted to fight, like, Rift Herald, if you wanted to fight Next Dragon, I don't even know that Cerberus would be able to do that because they just don't have the damage yet. I know Rod of Ages got completed. So they're trying plays like this, and they're just not going right? Even though Pun dodges the rock, which I thought was going to be a really big difference maker, it's just the hyperproc. Like, the hyperproc absolutely wins the situation. And then was Drakthar wrapping around ahead of time? I feel like I remember Drakthar running down the river when that play started instead of running directly at Kiaya. So I don't know if that was the right decision either.
He Arctic assaulted over the river wall to get into position behind the tower, and I think was just waiting for Pun to get the wave to crash on the tower, which didn't really happen.
Yeah, and then Pun jumped in. So it's like, again, is it a miscommunication? Is it like Drakthar not understanding what to do? Is it Pun not understanding what to do? It's such a weird thing. This is similar to what happened in game number 1, where it just feels like, again, they're just a little bit not coordinated the way that they need to be making plays like this happen.
And now Style is going to be getting another tower. I think that maybe Pun just thought he could safely trade on Kiai just to get him chunked down quite low and then go for another trade afterwards. And then got surprised by Mega Gnar stats.
I love that. And they're trying to set up just a defense of this top side, so Xin had like 2 turrets down just to be an absolute menace to anybody who tried to walk in. So I can appreciate that from Xin. They can't really recapture control of the Tri-Brush. They did get Rift Herald too. Again, Levi is way too strong for his own good in this game. That tower's just dead. They don't even have to pop the Rift Herald for it. This is domination from GAM once again, similar to what happened in game number 1. They're just kind of controlling everything, a lot of it off the back of Levi's really crazy pressure. And there have been a couple of coin flip plays that have not gone the way of Cerberus, but again, it is, to me, it's bad decision making this game. A couple of times they've kind of just made the wrong decision, and it's cost them a bit. We'll see if they can clean it up, because Artemis is still scaling. Artemis is not behind and is on a champion that I think has a lot better access than what Kai'Sa did in game number 1. So there's always the shot you could take this to team fighting and try to flip it like that. But Cerberus has a long way to go until that comes up.
And now Cerberus have to try to figure out a way to get back in this game. They're nearly 5,000 goal behind at 16 minutes. This is a huge advantage for GAM. And we've already talked about the scaling of this Orianna that has been unchecked. Rift Herald now being dropped in the mid lane as GAM are looking for the final one of Cerberus's outer towers.
Yeah, trying to crack open this. It would break open Kadi for the rest of the map. It would maybe allow quite a bit of pushing power to set up for Wukong and then these big kind of fight angles that you're looking for. Here we go.
Lockdown, lots of damage and shutdown is style, but can Cerberus win the rest of this fight? Levi dashing forward with the Cyclone. Yado will go golden to stay alive. The second part of the Cyclone finds the knockup, but he's shielded by the Karma to stay alive. It is just the one position. Rek'Sai jumps forward, tries to find a kill on Tikati, who just survives with a sliver of health. A 1-for-1 overall, and as a result of it, no Drakthar, no jungler, no smite. GAM are going to get their 3rd Drake of the game.
Artemis has enough health to feel confident. They've got a TP coming in as well. It's a TP on both sides, actually. Oh!
What can Pun do? Counter-Strike has already been used, trying to dash his way out to safety. Kiaya is on the hunt, getting those hyper-procs. Pun is just going to die. Yado is on the flank, trying to force GAM out of the river, but Ron P is low. Artemis is on half health. Yado is the only healthy member left of Cerberus, and now Style is back alive, making his way down towards the river, and Cerberus are just going to have to peace out and hand this Drake over to GAM.
This was just, it feels like it's so close for Cerberus to be able to overtake, but GAM is just unrelenting. It's a situation where, like, Levi is still really high health. Levi is not really pressed in the slightest to accomplish anything. Oh, Yato.
Caught by the Gnar ultimate, caught by the Gnar rock. Levi on the hunt. Yado is going to get the blast cone right into the waiting arms of Style, and then there is no way out for this Silas. Does a fair bit of damage onto Levi, but nowhere near enough.
It's just, again, Cerberus is so close, they almost break it. GAM, they find this massive extended play that just, it's so broken from Cerberus in terms of call, in terms of attention that they need to be paying. And I'm lost, man. I'm lost, Milky. You have to explain it to me. If we get a replay here, I'll go through as much of it as I possibly can to be like, okay, why exactly did this come through? And I'll see if you can answer questions for me. Because Cerberus, again, I cannot reiterate this enough. It feels like they could have won this situation super heavily.
100%.
It feels like they easily could have walked out of this with a massive win. And they just made bad decision after bad decision. And again, just hand it back to GAM. They're like, oh, we're going to win this situation? What if we just lose instead? What if we just decide to make the wrong calls? They're even going to lose mid tower off the back of this. They're ready to team fight. Oh my goodness.
And that's another kill. This time it's RonOP falling. I mean, look, Rebel, it comes down to what we said before. RonOP is playing a ranged champion.
True. I mean, in fairness, Thresh was ranged in the last game too, so...
Thresh is borderline. Thresh is a weird one.
Thresh is borderline. He's like a half and half, yeah. They had to change the whole Relic Shield design item for specifically that type of champion because people were pissed about it. Good times.
I still do. It was always weird, like... Even a few months ago, I was playing and you just hit a minion thinking, oh, it's going to die. And then it doesn't die. And then your ADC starts flaming you about how you didn't get cannon with your Relic Shield.
You have that problem? It still executes, my man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know, but it's weird. It did some weird things until they changed it like a couple of weeks back.
It sounds like a skill diff.
It is a skill diff. I've not played a lot of League lately. I'm absolutely atrocious now. GAM, though, are not atrocious. They're doing very, very well. 6k gold up, looking to go 4-0 in the split. And a dominant start, really, as well. Exactly what they would need.
And I can appreciate really heavily that, like, while Levi is having an amazing day, to me, Xin has also had a couple of good performances. This Heimer, especially, like, this being banned away from him, I was like, okay, this is, like, I would not expect a ton of VCS sports to have this in the repertoire. Xin is crushing with this. Like, this is clamping down one of the best ADCs in the entire league. RonOP has been suffering at the hands of the Heimerdinger for the entirety of the laning phase. It makes it difficult for them to team fight. Like, this pick was so deflating to Cerberus. Because, like, you think of Cerberus and it's like they're a very standard style of team. They want somebody big and bulky to go kind of start a team fight for them. They're going to let Artemis play a front to back style. And if you're playing with like 3 melee champions and they're like, oh, well, let's just pick Heimerdinger. What are you supposed to do? Like, how do you set up a fight? Like, you can't do it. It's not going to happen. Especially when you're making bad calls, like you're jumping in and flashing as Drakthar, trying to find a kill onto one member and trading your life away when Dragon is available. Like stuff like that just is not fly for Cerberus. It's little stuff that they're just throwing away needlessly to GAM that gave so much of an advantage, and GAM just perfectly capturing and utilizing it to the best of their abilities.
One more Drake needed for GAM. They've got a Baron as well. Cerberus are up against the ropes. And Levi already looking at potential flank angles. Cerberus are going to have to try to fight this, otherwise they're going to have to deal with 5 members of GAM with Baron buff. Yado's on one side, teleport coming through. GAM are going to turn. Xin is low. This might be the opportunity for Cerberus to fight a fight. Drakthar has been chunked down and will surely fall. 1 kill going over to the side of GAM, and Levi is still going strong. Pun left on his lonesome, and GAM, despite having a health bar deficit, they find 4 kills for absolutely diddly squat. They'll take the Baron as well, and Cerberus will be left with their heads in their hands.
They gave up a dive. That was the big problem right there. You see Levi and Kiaya making into the backline, kill off Artemis. There's nobody to play front to back at that point. There's nobody to actually put out damage because there's just not enough in Pun, not enough in Yato. It looked so good at the beginning. I was really, really worried for GAM. I was like, wow, 3 of your members are basically half health to start this fight. That is not a good look. It did not matter in the slightest. GAM does not have to do anything in order to finish this. Now, Baron buff is theirs. They'll just walk right to Dragon, grab up the Mountain Soul. There's probably no winning this game if Cerberus. Like, you're praying for a big team fight to try to get something back. I want to watch exactly how this happened because, like, Levi's in the midst of everything. Look at this. Yeah, Kadi's half health, Zin's half health. They find a decent ultimate onto Levi. It's Kiaya. Kiaya does all of the damage in this one. Look at this. Yeah, Artemis, he can't step forward. If Artemis is able to slide and kind of get behind Style, and then that's how this fight kind of plays out, might actually be a winning fight. Artemis gets dove so quickly that there's just no damage to be put out. That's GAM. That's understanding your threats. That's understanding like where you need to be on the map. This game has been so good from GAM that they deserve to win the series off the back of it. Like, they have played really well across the board. Every single player, every single fight, they have looked like the better team.
I think also as well, Drakthar's Glacial Prison landed onto Levi's clone, so Levi timing that warrior tricks her absolutely perfectly. Kiaya somewhat caught out, just hops over a wall and out to safety. Cerberus are just trying to get a little bit of gold, trying to pick up this objective bounty, being the top lane outer tower. And now going back onto Kiaya, but Kiaya just doesn't care. He's just going to 1v2 because he knows his team are just going to play the 4v3 on the other side of the map, and he's stopping Drakthar from backing, and he's just winning the 1v2 as well.
Yeah, okay, now he's gonna get stuck. Okay, all right. What do you got, Kai?
Goes
okay,
golden.
That makes sense.
Picture in picture.
Yeah.
Can he survive? Surely he's going to die, but even if Kiaya does die, this is going to be a bot lane inhibitor tower falling, both inhibitors as well. He's on no health.
He just killed Drakthar.
Oh my god, Kiaya, calm down.
Kiaya gets some MVP voting for that play on its own, because that was just absolutely ridiculous. But the game's over. Like, even if these two were able to kill him, I think 5 seconds ago, the game probably is just over. There's no way they're fighting this. And you can't even engage, because again, look at this. The Mega Turret's thrown down by Xin. Game's over.
Well, GAM will dismantle Cerberus in games 1 and 3 and continue their perfect start to VCS Spring 2023 as they go 4-0 at the top of the standings.
The 4 or 5 years now I've been casting, and it seems like it's the same storyline every single split. It's just GAM at the top, man. Like, you can't. I mean, it is inevitable that it's going to happen, even with a swap. Even after B leaves, and we're like, oh yeah, B was so good last split. They did not look like the same team without B. Xin just steps in with his insane champion pick. He steps in and is right there with the rest of the team leadership. Somebody stepped up to kind of make the B calls that this team needed, and GAM is looking just as dominant as ever.
In fairness, summer 2022, GAM did not get a good start to the season.
Yes. That's what I was saying. That was when B was going. That was when Elia was in. So, again, that was why our expectation was like a little lower on GAM this split. We were like, maybe this is the split where like Cerberus can challenge him. Saigon can challenge him. Maybe SPTC, Team Secret, Wales can step up and try to challenge him. And it's just not true. They're just they're cleaning people, sweeping them aside like they're nothing. Doesn't matter to them. It's GAM esports. Like I said, they're the kings of the VCS for a very specific reason. Every player playing their hearts out, especially in that game number 3, looking like a cohesive unit. And once again, they are the raid boss of the VCS.
Hey, support's the easiest role, right? So if you're an ADC role swapping to support, your team's only going to get better, right?
That's true. Yeah. If everybody were just mid laners, it would be a better game altogether, I think.
Mid laners. Oh, dearie me. What do you do with them? Any final closing thoughts, Rebel, before we wrap up this broadcast?
No, it was a great day of games. You can see, oh my, look at the damage numbers. Woo!
How Artemis, is the tank top lane doing the most damage?
Artemis is not allowed to do anything in this game. Why? Because like he's just gooning people with hyper procs the entire time. He's playing against 3 melees, man. Look at Artemis. Artemis couldn't do damage. Like, what team fight is he allowed to stand forward in? What team fight is he allowed to play in? Like, they just didn't have anything for him to actually do. So it was a really tough one. I can appreciate what GAM was able to do. A very, very convincing set of wins and a superb day for them. I know they lost a game to Cerberus, but that's perfectly fine. We have our number 1 team now, Milky, our guaranteed number 1 team. We have an insane rat race for number 2 right now. I feel like there's like 5 teams in competition for our second spot. I know we're pretty early on in the split, but I'm excited to see how that kind of stuff turns out.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it's all about the Hankey def for GAM. Perfect start then for GAM. Cerberus 2-1. VCS English will be back tomorrow as Box Esports take on Cerberus. And Saigon Buffalo will be facing off against SBTC Esports. But for myself, Rebel, from our producer for the day, Yolway, thank you very much for tuning in to VCS English, and we'll see you tomorrow. Stay tilt-proof on the Rift, and goodbye.